Get out of the way, you're blocking the pregnant lady, Abigail said, gently stroking her belly. Her face held a mean-spirited expression that made you wonder, shouldn't pregnant women have a more gentle demeanor? I looked over at my husband, Daniel. Go sleep in the storage room, he chimed in, echoing Abigail. Watching Daniel side with Abigail, my love for him cooled off. Yet, a part of me still felt a pang of sadness. All right then, I replied. Daniel happily took Abigail's hand in response. Abigail gazed back at him, utterly smitten. The sight of them together washed away my melancholy, replacing it with a rising anger from within. I'll be out by tomorrow. Sure. Oh, why don't you find somewhere else to stay tonight? This is mine and Abigail's house now, Daniel said, elated. I nodded slightly and left the house. They won't be laughing for long. Leaving the house, I allowed myself a smile, imagining what comes next. My name is Grace. A 46-year-old housewife. Before marriage, I worked hard, but that was over 20 years ago. Now, I enjoy my days doing household chores and savoring coffee, just an ordinary middle-aged lady. My hobby is investing, which I've done since before I got married, recently enjoying significant dividends that allow for luxury hotel lunches and spa visits. Daniel, 43, is a salesman for a major company. He's definitely put on some weight, and honestly, his scent has become rather strong recently, but as a salesman at the top of his game, he sure has a way with words. Despite looking like a big, burly guy, I've always loved him. I've thought about encouraging him to lose some weight for his health, but there's a certain adorable quality to him that made me think maybe it wasn't necessary. We have a daughter together, Scarlett. Scarlett has inherited Daniel's facial features, and being slim, she has the beauty of a model. Not just in looks, but academically and athletically, she excels, bringing home top grades and being selected for national competitions, all while being humble and hardworking. Both Daniel and I dote on her, often to the point where others say we're overprotective. Daniel has a bit of a weakness for younger women, but he chose me, an older woman, and has always prioritized our family, so I've come to accept his occasional wandering eye. We lived in a second-hand apartment bought around the time Scarlett was born, which has been aging, leading to discussions about increasing the maintenance fees. Amidst this, Scarlett decided to do room sharing near her university. At the same time, my relatives offered us an uninhabited house to inherit, prompting Daniel and me to decide on rebuilding it and moving in. Little did I know that this move would lead to such a turn of events with Daniel. While our old apartment had 4 rooms, our new home has only 2. It's smaller than before, but designing it as a single-story home considering our elder years has made it very comfortable. One of the 2 rooms, a combined study and guest room, can be divided into Scarlett's room and a study, making 3 rooms if she comes back. Since moving, Daniel's nights have become late due to work engagements, and he often finds excuses to go out on weekends. Being sensitive to smells, sleeping next to Daniel, who reeks of alcohol and tobacco, has been a challenge even with separate beds. Thus, despite having a shared bedroom, I've been sleeping in the study since we moved into the new house. When it came time to send out moving announcements, I took the initiative, sending letters far and wide. Daniel isn't great with these sorts of things, so I handled sending letters to the in-laws' house and his relatives on his behalf. Since both my parents have passed away, I only sent brief notices to relatives and friends on my mom's side. I haven't kept in touch with anyone from my dad's side of the family. And that's largely due to my sister, Abigail. Abigail is my half-sister, 14 years younger than me. She was born to my dad's second wife shortly after my mom died when I was in my first year of middle school. Abigail was already 2 years old when they remarried, so I initially thought it was a marriage where both parties already had children. My dad passed away in an accident along with his second wife about 5 years after they got remarried. At the funeral, relatives on my dad's side mentioned that he and his second wife had been childhood sweethearts, and everyone had expected them to marry. They blamed my mom for coming between them, saying she proposed marriage through her company connections, leaving no choice for my dad but to marry her, casting his second wife into the shadows. Despite my memories of my parents being happy, it turns out my dad had a child with his second wife behind the scenes. That revelation shocked me more than anything. At the relative's house, Abigail's favorite foods were always served. She wore brand clothes, had the biggest room to herself, and was taken to any place she wanted immediately. In contrast, I was burdened with preparing meals, doing laundry, cleaning, had my part-time earnings taken away, and my room was a small storage space under the stairs, where I was begrudgingly provided with the bare minimum after asking. By the time Abigail reached the middle grades of elementary school, she had learned about my mom from relatives and had come to look down on me. I had to juggle multiple part-time jobs to finally move out of that house. With such experiences, it's no wonder I harbored no fond feelings for Abigail, and I hadn't told her about my marriage or having a child. A few weeks after moving in, I was enjoying a coffee when the doorbell rang. A man's voice said, "Delivery." The screen showed someone looking down. Wondering if Daniel had ordered something, I opened the door. And I was surprised by the person who was there. "Abigail? What are you doing here?" "It's been a while, sis. I just showed up." The person in front of me was indeed wearing the hat seen on the doorbell camera, but it wasn't a delivery person, it was my sister, Abigail. Abigail slipped past me, frozen in shock, and made herself comfortable on the sofa in the living room. I hurried after her and stood towering in front of her, looking down. "If you knew it was me, you wouldn't let me in, right? That's why I used a recorded voice from before. That's awful, deceiving me like that. Oh, scary." Abigail feigned fear at my raised voice. But it was clear she was acting, evidenced by her smiling face. "I've come back home." "What?" Confused by Abigail's nonsensical remark, I responded coldly. With a bright smile, Abigail began to explain her sudden visit. "Well, you never tell me where you are. I got married, but my husband's always on business trips, and it's boring. And when you get pregnant, it becomes harder to move around, right? Everyone said I should come and have you take care of me. Go back. I have no intention of dealing with you, let alone take care of you. But I've already come here planning to have you look after me, so it's impossible." I was frustrated with Abigail's unapologetic attitude. Hearing her mutter, "Thief's daughter," under her breath, my anger reached its peak. "Get out! I never want to see your face again." "What's all the noise about?" "It can be heard from outside." "Daniel, Surprised by Daniel's unexpected return, I was at a loss for words when Abigail stood up and went over to him. Then she wrapped her arm around Daniel's. Daniel didn't shrug her off and seemed pleased with her presence. "Oh, Abigail's here? Welcome." "Daniel, sis is being mean. I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to stay with Daniel until the baby is born, but is that not okay?" "That's great. If you don't mind, you're welcome to stay as long as you like." I was stunned by the conversation between Daniel and Abigail. Not only that, but Abigail was clinging to Daniel, their proximity resembling that of lovers. "Daniel, what's this all about?" "You see, Abigail's had it tough, hasn't she?" "Why be so harsh? Jealous of your cute sister?" I felt despair at Daniel's words. I had told Daniel about my family situation before we got married. Yet, he said such things. "Look, you're not using your bed in the bedroom anyway, so it should be fine, right? Really? I can sleep in the same room with you, Daniel? Sleeping next to you sounds like it'd bring sweet dreams. Daniel, really? Their conversation, like that of a close couple, gave me a headache. Ignoring me, the two of them went to the bedroom, still arm in arm, to put away their luggage. However, when they didn't return after a few minutes, a bad feeling led me to peek into the bedroom. There, I found them embracing each other. Living with you feels like a dream come true. The baby's happy, too. To live with Dad. Abigail's words filled me with despair. Daniel is Dad? What does that mean? Daniel, looking pleased, nodded while embracing Abigail. We should leave the sister to babysit and go on a date. She's only good for that. I watched them kiss through the tears, peeking through the door gap. From that day on, they treated me like a housekeeper. While obeying them, I began to gather evidence little by little. I discovered more shocking truths about our household, leading me to consider divorce. One day, Abigail, sitting on my favorite sofa, summoned me. She spoke as if she owned the place. Get out of the way, I'm pregnant. Abigail said, gently rubbing her belly. Shouldn't pregnant women look more compassionate? Abigail's face was filled with malice. I looked at Daniel. You should sleep in the warehouse, he said, agreeing with Abigail. Seeing Daniel side with her, my love faded. Still, I felt a bit sentimental. All right then. Daniel happily took Abigail's hand in response. Abigail looked at Daniel adoringly. At that moment, my sentimental feelings vanished, replaced by anger from the bottom of my heart. I'll be out by tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, why don't you find somewhere else to stay tonight? This place is now mine and Abigail's. I nodded slightly and left the house, thinking they won't be laughing for long. After leaving, I smiled, imagining what comes next. I stayed in a hotel, planning my next steps. I arranged for movers to come the next day and planned to go to the office early before heading home. Excited about the future, I had trouble falling asleep that night, but feeling liberated, my heart felt lighter. The next day, I went as planned to get the divorce papers and headed home. The movers were already there, looking confused. They said the house was empty when they arrived, with just one cardboard box left at the entrance. At the entrance was indeed a small cardboard box with a note saying, "Please take whatever you want." Inside were my treasured books and cosmetics tossed carelessly, with books damaged and pages torn. At the very back was Daniel's wedding ring, fueling my rage. Entering the house, I found the bedroom in disarray with sheets, pajamas, and underwear scattered about, making it clear what had happened after I left. Please take all of these items, I said, closing the bedroom door and leading the movers to the study. Daniel doesn't read, so the study was filled with books collected by me and Scarlett. Since I only had a few outfits to begin with, I decided to take this opportunity to buy new ones. When I entered the living room, I found a letter on the dining table. The letter mentioned that Daniel and his companion were going on a prenatal trip abroad for 5 nights and 6 days. It instructed me to keep the house clean during their absence and to prepare for the divorce immediately upon their return. I was dumbfounded by their selfishness. However, this made my plan much easier to execute, so I secretly thanked them in my heart. After having the movers take all my belongings, I removed my wedding ring and left it in the kitchen. Leaving the ring behind, I exited my home. I debated over where to move but ended up buying a place near Scarlett's university that happened to be for sale. The new house was very comfortable, and I enjoyed my solitude for the first time in a while. On the day of their return, my mobile phone kept ringing incessantly. I knew who it was without even looking at the screen. Without diverting my eyes from the book I was reading, I answered the call. Yes. What the hell is this about? Daniel blurted out without any greeting, his voice frantic. The reason was clear, but I responded casually. What do you mean? Don't play dumb. The house is gone. I couldn't help but laugh out loud at Daniel's statement, hearing him panic on the other end. After my laughter subsided, I replied to Daniel. Why? Well, it's my house, so if I'm not living there, I don't need it, right? We were living there. What about our stuff? Don't worry. I've kept everything as is in a storage unit. I'll send you the location and the pin in a message. Don't mess around. Bring everything back now. Give us our house back. That's funny. The land and the house are in my name. I used the money I made from investments to build it, not a dime from you. It seemed Daniel finally remembered the circumstances under which the house was built. When we were deciding whether to remodel or rebuild, Daniel said he had no money and told me to do whatever I wanted with my own money. So, I took care of everything from the paperwork to the payments, building the house to my liking. But Daniel, seduced by Abigail, had completely forgotten about that. Please, it's for your niece or nephew that's about to be born. Find us a house. It's unfair to Abigail. My niece or nephew. I'd love to meet someone who can adore the child of the husband who cheated on them. What are you saying? Did you think I wouldn't notice? Daniel had believed he hadn't been caught, but his confident demeanor quickly changed. I pressed on. I've been aware of your affair with Abigail since the day she barged into our house, and I've been collecting evidence since then. Evidence? The baby camera Abigail had me buy. It's been recording. You didn't notice, did you? Daniel let out a small sound. The baby camera was the first thing Abigail demanded when she settled in. She had already done her homework and requested a high-end camera that costs $1,000. Of course, I initially refused, but after being yelled at by Daniel, I reluctantly bought it. However, the camera setup was left entirely to others, and neither Daniel nor Abigail had touched the camera since its purchase. So, I secretly activated it, capturing everything in the bedroom. True to its price, it even captures clear images in the dark, including both of you in bed and what you were doing under the covers. Snooping around like that is in poor taste. I was merely testing the capabilities of the baby camera. Still better than a man who cheats with his wife's sister, I'd say. Daniel seemed unable to respond. To Daniel, I cheerfully said, "Oh, and I think I left the mailbox untouched, so you might want to check that." The mailbox? Yes, it should have arrived by now. I could hear Daniel checking the mailbox over the phone. Then, the next moment, I heard his surprised voice. "Oh, good. It looks like it arrived, the certified mail. Make sure you take care of the payment, okay? Hey, there's one for Abigail too. Are you going to leech off your sister? What are you talking about? You two betrayed me, so this is a compensation claim. Family or not, it doesn't matter. But no excuses. We'll go through lawyers from here on out. Bye." Wait, Grace. I hung up, ignoring Daniel's call. My phone kept ringing off the hook, but I ignored it. I had already signed up for a new mobile phone over these 5 days, so the old one was just for keeping evidence. Ignoring it caused no problems. Daniel kept calling for about an hour but eventually gave up. He seems to have complained to the lawyer, who later reported to me with a tired voice. The next morning, I got a call on my mobile phone from Dad's side of the family. Since I hadn't given them my contact information, it was probably Abigail who had whined to them, planning to scold me. Reluctantly, I answered the call while recording it on my new phone. Yes? How could you throw out a pregnant Abigail like that? Apologize to her immediately and provide a new house as compensation. Why should I apologize to a woman who slept with my husband? Whatever Abigail has told you, she should be the one to apologize. And she should be the one to pay compensation. This is why the daughter of a thief. Right. Just like the child of a dad who betrayed mom and had a child with his affair partner. You end up with someone weak-minded enough to sleep with her half-sister's husband, growing up just as poorly. Oh, and please tell Abigail to stay away from me from now on. Though, I doubt she'll have the luxury to do so. The relative was still complaining, but I hung up. Feeling surprisingly refreshed after venting everything I had been holding back. I contacted the lawyer to summon Abigail and Daniel. I wouldn't close this chapter of revenge until I saw their frustrated faces. The meeting at the law office then took place. Before me were Abigail, looking sulky, and Daniel, appearing disgruntled. It seemed they hadn't learned their lesson even after all that had been said. I never thought my sister would turn out to be such a miser. I'm shocked. If I knew she was so greedy, I wouldn't have married her. I was deceived. Hearing Abigail and Daniel's self-centered comments, I moved beyond anger to sheer disbelief. I laid the divorce papers in front of them and also presented another document, a marriage registration form. As for the compensation, I might consider reducing it if you sign this. If signing this is all it takes to reduce the amount, then give it here, Daniel said, snatching the pen from me to sign. Abigail also signed, laughing. I put the documents in a file and then smiled brightly. I'll make sure to submit this to the office. Did you forget, sis? I'm already married. It won't be accepted anyway. Well, don't worry. You're single now. Huh? Abigail looked at me with a dumbfounded expression. I rephrased it for her, making it easier to understand. Yesterday, the divorce mediation finalized our divorce. I didn't know about that. Well, you threw away the mail without checking it. There were several letters, orders to appear in court. I got a message from your husband saying the divorce was finalized and now he's filing to deny paternity of the child. That can't be. While Abigail stood there dumbfounded, Daniel seemed oddly pleased. No wonder, since he could marry Abigail until after her remarriage prohibition period ends. To Daniel, who seemed quite content, I smiled sweetly. It must be tough for you, having to support a child that isn't yours. What? The child in her belly is mine. Oh, you didn't know? Poor thing. The child Abigail is carrying is actually from her real boyfriend at the club. Club guy? When Daniel turned to Abigail with force, she awkwardly looked away, indicating my statement was true. Seeing this, Daniel's face turned pale, realizing the truth. Good luck with the compensation payment and raising someone else's child. I know it'll be tough. Grace, let's start over. I was wrong. After all, there's Scarlett. As Daniel changed his tune, the door to the lawyer's office burst open, and a woman walked in. Daniel turned pale the moment he saw her. Scarlett? Dad, you're the worst. Hurting Mom like that. I'm cutting ties with you. From now on, I'll live with Mom. You and that loose woman can just disappear. Scarlett had never spoken so harshly before, leaving Daniel frozen in shock. Meanwhile, Abigail, insulted, was red-faced and trembling. Who are you calling loose? Sleeping with someone other than your husband, then my husband, and also your real boyfriend from the club. Which part of that isn't loose? Are you insane? Scarlett's fierceness left Abigail speechless. I delivered the final blow to Abigail. Just so you know, He's frugal but never manages to save money because he spends it all on young women, so be careful. What? But what about the house, the car? Oh, those? All mine. Bought with my dividend income. We used them as a married couple, but after the divorce, we're strangers. A man with a $3,000 salary couldn't afford that car anyway. $3,000? Even though he works for a big company? Apparently motivated by money, Abigail was frozen in shock. Daniel, too, was looking down, embarrassed by the revelation of his low salary. Well, good luck with everything. I said that and left with Scarlett, entrusting the rest to the lawyer. The dinner I had with Scarlett that night was genuinely enjoyable and delicious, the best we had in a long time. Later, I filed the divorce papers. When Abigail's remarriage prohibition period ended, I also submitted Daniel and Abigail's marriage registration. The witness section was signed by me and Abigail's ex-husband. Daniel was fired for repeatedly cheating with Abigail during work hours and misappropriating travel expenses for their affairs. Now he's struggling, working part-time jobs to make ends meet. Abigail seems to be taking care of the child but cries daily, having been dumped by her club boyfriend once the money ran out, unable to tolerate her unbearable personality. Abigail admitted she targeted Daniel because she couldn't stand that I got married and had a child before she did, wanting to ruin it. She thought she could get money from both her ex-husband and Daniel by claiming the child was Daniel's and leave the care to me while she visited her club boyfriend. After all this, even her relatives have abandoned her, forcing her to reluctantly take up part-time work, which didn't last long due to her attitude. Now, she, Daniel, and the baby live cramped together, barely scraping by. Scarlett is enjoying her university life. I was surprised to learn her roommate was her same-sex partner, but seeing Scarlett happy made me think it was all right. As for me, I continue to live off my dividend income. After the divorce, I've been in touch more with Abigail's ex-husband, who's been asking me out to dinner. It seems that Abigail and her ex-husband were married through their parents' introduction, pushed heavily by Abigail herself, I later learned. Yet, I wonder why she was dissatisfied with him, to the point of curiosity. I received a message from him earlier on my mobile phone, saying he has something important to discuss, making me feel somewhat restless today. Despite telling myself not to expect too much, my face blushed like that of a girl in love as I sat in front of the dresser, applying makeup. I've fallen for someone else. I want to get a divorce. Our marriage was in ruins, and my husband, Vincent, handed me divorce papers. He often berated me for my whole attitude of our life. Without resisting, I accepted the divorce papers. I know the real reason he wanted the divorce. Fine. Here, the divorce papers. I signed and pushed the papers back at Vincent, who looked puzzled by my lack of resistance. I wasn't going to refuse the divorce. He was going to see what hell on earth looks like. After the divorce, I immediately went to a specific place. My name is Charlotte Henderson, wife of Vincent, a real estate company president. Vincent and I have been together for 10 years, and now he's confronting me with divorce papers. It all started about 6 months ago. Can't you settle down with your work? Vincent, who runs a real estate company, was rarely at home. It wasn't like this when we first married, but now his business thrived, his social commitments are increased. He was always out, using entertainment as an excuse. No family time on weekends, he was always going out alone. I spent my days at home, lonely. We didn't have children. And every time he left me at home, I blamed myself if it was because I couldn't have children. For Vincent, who loves kids, marrying me might have been a miscalculation. Our marital life faded away after 5 years. One day, I reached my limit and tried to negotiate for making some family time with Vincent. After dinner, as he was immersed in his hobbies, I tried to speak to him, but he didn't respond. Engrossed in some radio commentary. Go, go, go. That's it. Overtake. Do it. Vincent, fist clenched in his right hand, kept cheering passionately, completely ignoring me. It was as if I wasn't even in his sight. What kind of marriage is this? Normally, wouldn't you notice someone standing right in front of you? Is it strange that I feel this way? As I was lost in these sad thoughts, the game ended, and Vincent, throwing his earphones onto the sofa, began to complain. Damn it! What's he doing? That jockey needs to get it together. I've put a lot of money on this. It seemed Vincent was listening to a horse racing commentary. I couldn't help but wonder, horse racing over his wife's important talk? Hey, I need to talk to you. What? Can't you see I'm not in the mood for pointless chatter right now? What, you've got something important? Just get to the point then. Vincent glared at me irritably, taking out his frustration about his loss on me. I was disappointed by his rude words and attitude. Why do I have to bear the brunt of your frustration over losing a bet? I blurted out my sadness before I knew it, and Vincent snapped back, irritated. What did you say? I've been waiting patiently for your horse racing to finish because I have something to talk about. Why do I deserve to be spoken to like this? What have I done? There was also the loneliness of not being paid attention to. When he was at home, he devoted his time to his hobbies, neglecting me completely. It became clear during this fight that he thinks providing money is enough to be with me. Shut up. Stop chirping like a little bird. Talk to me when I'm in a better mood. When are you ever home for us to talk? You're always out on business entertaining, and when you are at home, it's all about you. What am I to you? I didn't get married just to be a housekeeper. My pent-up feelings erupted. I had never raised my voice like this, but I couldn't bear Vincent's harsh words and attitude. When we were dating, he was devoted, treating me like a princess. He always put me first, acted lovingly, and cherished me. I spent days filled with love, thinking marrying him would lead to a happy marriage. That's why I accepted his proposal. Initially, our marriage was enviable. What a perfect husband, everyone would say. I thought our happy days would continue. But that only lasted the first 2 years. Then, his selfishness and tyranny became evident. Now, I'm treated no better than a housekeeper. I cater to his picky eating without complaint, clean like I'm shadowing my MIL, with strict checks as if not a speck of dust is allowed. One time, he even mocked me in front of relatives for not being able to have children. My mom had to intervene, but his harassment never stopped. When we were alone, how many times did he call me useless? I endured these humiliating days because of the memories of his kindness when we were dating. I was grateful for the love he once showed me, so no matter how badly he treated me, I could endure it with a smile. But now, what about him? The man before me seems like a completely different person from back then. He shouts at me on a whim, showing annoyance at my very existence. Why is he still living with me if he finds me so bothersome? I'd rather he just leave me than continue like this. As these sad thoughts crossed my mind, Vincent uttered unbelievable words. You've become so annoying. When we were dating, you'd do anything I said, and you were pretty cute, so I married you. But I never expected you to become such a troublesome older lady after marriage. Being with you just irritates me. You're useless, can't even have kids. You're just like a housekeeper now. His words left me in despair, speechless. He doesn't see me as a woman anymore. I had suspected it, but hearing it directly from him was a shock, and I couldn't find words to respond. What were those 10 years for me? I devotedly supported him in his business, believing he loved me despite everything. I believed this rough patch would pass, and we'd return to happy days like before. I believed I was the most cherished woman to him. But now, he looks at me as if I was something inferior, annoyed by my presence. Is this the reward for supporting him for 10 years? If so, this is too cruel a treatment from God. My sadness turned to hatred, then to anger. I'm tired of being with you. Vincent saw me clenching my fists, unable to speak. He sighed in annoyance, grabbed his cigarettes, and went outside. His wallet and mobile phone were in his pants, and I knew he wouldn't come back home that day. As expected, he didn't return home that night. I stared at the door he left through, dazed. The happy times, the moments I thought were joyful, they all flashed through my mind. Realizing I was alone, I cried out loud. This fight created a significant rift between Vincent and me. He seemed to dread even seeing my face, returning home only after I was asleep to grab a change of clothes and leave. I'm afraid of being hurt by his cutting words like that day. I too couldn't bring myself to talk to him. If he asked for a divorce now, I had nowhere to go, no place to return to. My parents passed away in a car accident right after I got married. When I lost them both within a year, I became like a shell of a person. Vincent was the one who supported me then, and at that time, I truly felt grateful to be married to him. Since then, Vincent was the only family I had. I had no other acquaintances to rely on. Except only my FIL and my L. But I couldn't bring myself to confide in Vincent's parents. They were kind to me, but no parent would be happy hearing such complaints about their son. I could even risk being disliked by them. Back then, I was too scared to take any action, a real coward. Maybe I was destined to live as a housekeeper by Vincent's side for the rest of my life. With these thoughts, I spent many nights crying myself to sleep. Then, after some time, Vincent unexpectedly returned home in a good mood. Despite not speaking for over 3 months, he came home while I was awake, carrying a box of shortcake as a peace offering. "Charlotte, this is for you." "What is it?" His sudden change in demeanor caught me off guard, and I looked at him apprehensively. Vincent, noticing my wary gaze, smiled awkwardly and handed me the box of cakes. "I've been wrong. I regret being so cold to you that day. I want to spend happy days with you again. Can we make up?" Seeing Vincent bow his head in apology made my tears flow. The kind Vincent I knew had returned. I remember hugging him, filled with faint hope. True to his word, he started treating me with care again. He was as kind as when we were lovers, made an effort to come straight home, and prioritized spending time with me despite his busy schedule. We increased our time together as a couple. The truth is, the company was struggling at that time. I was reckless and took out my frustration on you. I'm really sorry for making you feel bad. One afternoon, while watching a movie on the couch, Vincent stroked my hair and shared his feelings from that time. "No, I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have blamed you without knowing the circumstances." The air was finally clear between us. I thought we could start living happily as a couple again. That belief lasted until a phone call came to Vincent's mobile phone. One night during dinner. It was an unusual call from a woman's name. Vincent hurried to answer it, stepping outside as if he didn't want me to hear the conversation. Was it an important business contact? I thought so, but something felt off for the first time. Since the day we reconciled, Vincent had taken all his calls in front of me. The only exception was during our tumultuous rough patch. Back then, thinking about it now, Vincent persistently avoided making calls in front of me. A bad premonition crept up on me. So, when Vincent returned, I tried to coax the truth out of him. "It's unusual for you to take a call outside. Someone from work? Eh? Oh, yeah, something like that. Didn't I tell you about resigning as president and starting a new venture? It was about that, an employee consultation." Vincent was planning to hand over his current real estate company to a trusted subordinate and take on the role of chairman, overseeing both his current and a new company. "Everyone seems anxious without me. They keep calling me for advice. A change in leadership is a big deal for a company." Vincent talked more than usual, desperately trying to cover something up. It was clear to me. The word affair crossed my mind. Vincent was cheating on me behind my back. The moment I realized this, my love for him instantly cooled. That sounds tough. Don't overdo it. With this, I decided to thoroughly investigate Vincent's infidelity. Handling the monthly household budget efficiently, saving over $30,000. I managed to find a lawyer specializing in infidelity cases and immediately hired them. I also hired an investigator who confirmed that Vincent was cheating with a 20-year-old girl from his office. Here are the documents summarizing their relationship. The investigator handed me the report, and I was shocked to read it. Vincent had been in a relationship with this woman for over 5 years, with periods of separation. They had rekindled their relationship on the day he called her during our dinner. So that's why. The reason for our strained relationship was because things were going well between Vincent and this woman. He reached out to me for reconciliation only after being rejected by her. I was just a convenient piece for him. Realizing this, I decided to meet someone. Taking advantage of a weekend when Vincent was on a business trip, I headed to a specific location. Determined to get my revenge. After a while, Vincent's new company was established, and he successfully stepped down as president. We had a lavish dinner at home to celebrate. Congratulations on your hard work, Mr. President. Managing 2 companies will be even more challenging, but good luck. Since then, our relationship had returned to the hellish atmosphere of our rough patch. His relationship with the other woman was going well again. The investigation revealed that Vincent's mistress was possessive and jealous, and he stopped treating me as a woman to avoid upsetting her and getting dumped. He deliberately created a cold atmosphere, using harsh words and actions to keep me at a distance. When irritated, he treated me like a punching bag. That's how he had been handling our relationship. All this was because his mistress, taking advantage of the fact I didn't use social media, exposed everything on hers. The investigator found it, and Vincent's and her thoughts were completely exposed. I had all the evidence I needed. Then, while I was thinking this, Vincent, with a cold gaze, let out a big sigh and handed me a piece of paper.
I don't want to eat your cooking. Wasting money on such things. Do you even realize who's allowing you to live like this? I wasn't giving you money each month for this nonsense.
Vincent glared at me furiously as he yelled. But his gaze didn't intimidate me at all. Looking at the paper he handed me, I saw it was a divorce application. I've found someone else. I want a divorce. Vincent announced the divorce as if it were the most natural thing, not showing any remorse. He probably thought that after the past 6 months, I would readily accept it. He probably thought that way. Though his thoughts were transparent, I chose not to say anything. Fine. Here, the divorce application. I quickly signed it and presented it back to him with the brightest smile. Vincent was astonished. Why are you agreeing so readily? He seemed to want to ask, but before he could, I started packing. I already knew he would present me the divorce papers today after seeing his mistress's social media post. All I had to prepare was a bag with my essentials. I'll arrange for the movers myself, and we can proceed with the rest through the lawyers. Goodbye. Ignoring Vincent's attempts to stop me, I quickly left the house. Despite the hellish life I endured, there were indeed happy moments. I decided to part ways with the home I shared with him and headed somewhere specific. The next day, I called the company where his mistress worked. She was a new employee at the headquarters where Vincent held his position. A mistake from a drinking party that turned into a relationship. She was 5 months pregnant. Likely with Vincent's child. I decided to confront them with this shocking truth and summoned them. Please come to the chairman's family home tonight. We need to discuss something. The time is. I specifically named the mistress in the call, told her this much. And hung up without saying more, waiting for night to fall. At the appointed time, they arrived at the family home. Vincent, fuming, stormed in, having called the house repeatedly.
What's going on, Mom? Why didn't you answer the phone? What is this?
Entering the living room, Vincent immediately started berating his mother in a haughty tone. However, as soon as he and his mistress entered, they were shaken by the odd scene before them. "What do you mean, what? Can't you see? I thought we'd have a nice dinner with everyone. I've invited your relatives." There, the representatives of the Henderson family were sipping tea, eagerly awaiting their return. "Hello, Vincent. It's been a while. You said you have something to tell us? Who's this lady? She looks pregnant. Don't you have a seat for her?" The relatives, unaware of the situation, asked. Amidst them, only the FIL and MIL remained reactionless, watching Vincent and his companion with a gentle smile. "Vincent, you have something to tell us about this lady, right?" It was Mael, Talia, who broke the silence. Talia, always kind and graceful, spoke softly, but her eyes were not smiling. Instead, they were shrouded in an almost frightening darkness, making Vincent shiver.
"What do you mean, something to say?"
No need to play dumb. We've heard everything from Charlotte. It was Fael, Keith, who delivered this blow to a faltering Vincent. In stark contrast to Talia, Keith looked at him sternly. The moment he heard Keith's words, Vincent glared at me in panic and spat out harsh words.
"What have you done? You're no longer my DIL, so don't meddle in family matters."
Not his DIL. What does that mean? Vincent's outburst led the Henderson family to look at him curiously, voicing their questions.
He was unwittingly digging his own grave, an utter fool.
To think I once fell for such a man made me nauseous. As I watched in disbelief, Talia, now furious, spoke up.
"How dare my son neglect such a good DIL and become infatuated with another woman? Shame on the Henderson family. Realize your foolishness."
Talia, in her suit, stood resolutely like the owner of a high-end restaurant, her presence overwhelming everyone. Her words must have been terrifying for Vincent. Overwhelmed by their presence, he stumbled backward and fell. "Thought you got away with an easy divorce? Don't underestimate me. I've already spoken with Keith and Talia, explained the situation, and they've given me permission to claim alimony from you. They want to maintain a good relationship with me and said they'll disown you from the Henderson family." Approaching the frightened Vincent, I leaned down and whispered in a voice only he could hear, my expression menacing. That day, I bravely sought Keith and Talia, crying as I explained everything. As soon as I showed them the evidence, Keith bowed his head to me, and Talia offered support, saying I should always rely on them. I never imagined my son would stoop to such disgraceful behavior. Thank you for telling us, Charlotte. You've endured so much pain, Keith and Talia said, treating me kindly. For the first time in a long while, I felt the warmth of people's kindness. After that, both Keith and Talia were pleased to help with my plan. They informed the relatives who had celebrated our marriage about the situation and arranged for no one to side with Vincent. They had called everyone to ensure this.
"Never come to this house again. I don't want to see your face. You're a disgrace,"
Talia repeated many times. For Keith and Talia, who shared a loving relationship, infidelity was unthinkable. That their son had committed it was unforgivable. Oh, I almost forgot. As I turned to Vincent's mistress, who watched everything unfold in shock, she looked at me fearfully. I smiled reassuringly at her and handed her a medical report, revealing a shocking truth. That child isn't Vincent's. We already know. My bold statement shocked her, and Vincent too turned to us, confused and angry. Before our divorce, Vincent and I couldn't conceive, so we got tested. The results showed I was fine. The problem was Vincent. He was diagnosed with azoospermia. The medical report confirmed my words. How exactly did you conceive Vincent's child, then? I'd love to know how. Can you share that knowledge? My mocking tone visibly drained the color from the mistress's face. Vincent was enraged and started questioning to her, but Keith and the other men held him back. Through this, I successfully drove a wedge between Vincent and his mistress, leading to their breakup. The mistress ended up raising the child alone, and Vincent, now desperate, came begging me for reconciliation, which I promptly rejected. I claimed a substantial alimony in the divorce through my lawyer. Vincent, faced with the overwhelming evidence, was too disheartened to resist and complied with the lawyer's demands. Now, I work as an office clerk at the company run by Keith, helped by him and Talia. "If there's anything we can do, just let us know," Keith said. "You're not atoning for our son's sins." "We truly think of you as our daughter, Charlotte," Talia added. Talia thanked me for having the courage to come to them, expressing deep gratitude. "Despite your suffering, you've been so kind to us. We always looked forward to your letters and gifts, wondering when you would visit us again," she said, keeping my letters and pressed flowers in a cherished treasure box. "If you don't mind, you can rely on us as much as you want from now on. Don't hesitate to think of this as your second home." Vincent, now disowned, was no longer allowed even to enter the Henderson home. After a month, he stopped trying to visit forcefully. Now that the turmoil has settled, I live with Keith and Talia. They offered me a home, concerned about me living alone.
"Why don't you come and live with us as our adopted child?"
They loved me so much that they even suggested adoption, and now I live happily with Keith and Talia as their true daughter. Being a husband's housekeeper, and if you defy, I'll divorce you. That's what Tyler, who stole my black card and went on a spending spree, threatened me with. Taking advantage of my being at work, he's off gallivanting on overseas vacations. I can't stand being mocked by such a ridiculous man. Sure. At my wit's end, I dismiss a call from Tyler and set out to enact a terrifying plan of revenge. My name is Harper. A former actress, I was a star who swept the nation. Having appeared in international dramas, I was once reported overseas as captivating men around the world. My popularity back then was extraordinary. My retirement from the entertainment world came about when I married Tyler, my then manager. He was my rock, skillfully supporting me as I tirelessly traveled the globe. He took care of everything, from my health to my personal life. Even after leaving showbiz, he's been a great help with the business I'm currently handling. Now, we collaborate and run a company related to apparel. I retired from the entertainment industry to marry him, and that was 10 years ago when I was 21. At the height of my fame, my retirement announcement had the media swarming my house daily. Even fanatical fans showed up. Every day, I received letters begging me not to quit, and my departure even caused a societal stir. Rumors and various media coverage abounded, but Tyler and I, oblivious to public opinion, married at the peak of our happiness. Everyone around me supported this decision. Just before retiring, I launched my own apparel brand, and now Tyler works there as an employee. I've entrusted him with the finances, while I, as a president, market our models. Though our life seems perfect, it's been far from it lately. Tyler's been acting strange. He comes home exhausted, sighing heavily, and gazes at me with an indescribable look. "What's wrong, Tyler? You've been down lately. Trouble at work?" I've always understood that he tends to internalize things. That's why, during our time together, I often try to gauge his mood. It seems he struggles to voice his worries and complaints on his own, always waiting for me to intuitively act. Sure, there are times when this feels bothersome, but I've never really resented it. After all, he has dealt with more troublesome things because of me. Gratitude, I suppose, has always outweighed any annoyance. I'm tired of always being the sidekick, always following your orders. His words, so unlike the expected work-related complaints, shook me. "What's this all of a sudden? You've never mentioned this before." He often deliberately spoke in a way that hurt me. He starts saying these things when his work gets busy. Since he's always so firm at work, I guess he doesn't have a place to vent. I remember venting to him numerous times when I was an actress. So, I understand how he feels. But still, being confronted with such unexpected words, my voice trembled with disturbance. I've been holding back. "You are busy," and I'm the one being taken care of, if you think about it. He earns decently, but after all, he's just an employee at my company. I'm the higher earner. I never thought income mattered in our marriage, so his words were a shock to me.
Even when you come home, it's all about work. You hardly pay any attention to me. When we go shopping together, you buy whatever you want without a second thought. How do you think I feel watching that? I'm actually quite patient. Why can't you be more considerate?
He, pouting like a spoiled child, looked at me with dissatisfaction. Honestly, his words irritated me. Our household mostly runs on my income. I told him he could do whatever he wanted with his salary. It's my way of thanking him for all the trouble he's gone through for me. There were times when we were poor, and he supported and provided for me. I thought I was repaying him for all his sacrifices, even until the day I retired, by letting him use his time as he pleased. It's heartbreaking to hear such ungrateful words from him. The clothes and accessories I buy during our shopping trips are from money I saved. If anything, I'm the one who's been holding back. These thoughts flash through my mind, and anger starts to build within me.
Harper, you're just too free. I want more time off, and I'd like to travel leisurely. The job at the company pays well but leaves no time. I joined your company specifically to ease your burden. Don't I deserve some gratitude? Instead of prioritizing your time, give me some time to rest too.
When I retired, he chose to continue in the entertainment industry as a manager, staying behind while I left. But when my business started taking off after we got married, Tyler changed his mind and wanted to be my support. If I join the company, you won't be lonely, right? I want to be there for you, Harper. Since I wanted to spend more time with him, I agreed to let him join our company. I never asked him to join, so why am I being treated like this? Isn't this life enough? Isn't he being too selfish? While I was pondering this, he made a proposal that felt like a final blow. Hey, my parents are turning 60 soon. Can I take some time off for their celebration? That's all I ask. No more demands from me, but I'll need 2 weeks off. I want to take them on an overseas trip. They've never been to Mexico, and I want to show them the delicious food and beautiful sights there. I was taken aback by his unexpected request and felt a sense of discomfort. A 2-week vacation could be easily taken by using paid leave. Our company is known for its easy vacation policies. There's no reason for such a confrontational approach unless something else is going on. Despite this, the fact that he would come to me directly with such a hostile attitude for negotiation struck me as odd. I thought so, but it was just a hunch. There was nothing concrete to prove this uneasy feeling. While suppressing my irritation, I calmly responded. That's fine, but I can't join you this year. There's an important fashion show for our models and the Paris collection needs preparation. Can you ask if next year works? I'll adjust my schedule then. As his wife, I can't miss my parents-in-law's 60th birthday celebration. But this year, our company has 2 major events, and I can't afford the time to travel. I suggested postponing, but he refused with a smile. That's fine. I'll just go with my family. I want to spend some time with them. As the accountant, my absence won't disrupt the work too much. His reference to family pained me, as if implying I'm an obstacle. So, how about it? I deserve some free time too, right? He has always been someone who speaks without malice, often impulsively. His honesty and straightforwardness are some of his good traits, but sometimes he speaks too hastily. No one is perfect, and I chose him as my partner, flaws included, but this way of speaking is just too much. Even if he doesn't intend it, why do I have to be spoken to like this? Doesn't he care about me at all? Harper? Are you listening to me? Despite this, I've always received great care from my parents-in-law. I can't often visit their house due to work, but when I do, they treat me like their own daughter, always praising my work. I'm so happy to have such a proud daughter. Samantha, my mother-in-law, expressed joy since I married, and Cody, my father-in-law, also celebrated our marriage with happiness. It's their birthday celebration, after all. I understand his desire to celebrate it this year. But how can I respond positively after being spoken to in such a manner?
It's no problem. Take 1 or 2 weeks, whatever you prefer.
Unable to bear his harsh words, I let my anger show. This must have been the turning point for Tyler. He stood up, irritated, and left the living room without a word. We have separate bedrooms due to our work schedules. From that day until his departure for the trip, we didn't see each other at all. Is that really true? Isn't Tyler being too harsh? Mia, my secretary, noticed something was off on the day Tyler left for his trip and pressed me for details. Mia is truly a talented individual and has been a support since I started running the company. As women, we often share the same opinions, and I trust her perhaps even more than Tyler. She's adept at sensing my moods and quick to assist when I'm down or about to make a mistake. I dote on Mia like family. She looks up to me like a sister, and I often consult with her. Her candid advice is always helpful. And now, noticing my unusual demeanor, she expressed her concern. I hesitated at first to tell her everything, but if I continued working like this, it could affect my performance. I decided to confide in her about everything that had happened up to today. She furrowed her brow in anger as I spoke. If I were his wife, I'd have spoken up firmly. I've always thought this, but Harper, you're too lenient with him. I understand you love him, but you shouldn't let yourself be taken for granted. Her straightforward reasoning felt like a blow to my heart. In a world where everyone hesitates to speak their mind to me, Shay's the only one who treats me as an equal. This refreshing and comforting feeling is precious to me. As one's position rises, people tend to become more humble and reserved. Having someone like her who confronts me head-on is truly invaluable.
You're right. What should I do?
Can't you call Tyler? Maybe try talking to him after work today? There's no need to be considerate about disturbing his trip. If this continues, it could lead to a divorce crisis. Do you understand? Her sisterly advice left me with no response but to agree. Since work ended early that day, following her suggestion, I decided to call him immediately. He was in Mexico. The time difference wasn't significant, and he should be resting in his room after dinner. I had texted him earlier to let him know I needed to talk, so he should be expecting the call. Expecting no issues, I called, but he didn't answer.
Maybe he's still enjoying his time with everyone? I'll try calling again later.
I tried calling every 30 minutes, but still no answer. Worried, I contacted Samantha to inquire about Tyler's well-being.
Hello, Harper. Sorry we went on this trip just with our family. Cody and I told Tyler we'd prefer if you were with us, but he insisted.
Samantha used to be strict and education-focused, as Tyler once told me. But now, she's kind and always concerned about my busy life, offering comforting words.
No, I'm sorry I couldn't make it this year due to our company's busy schedule. Next year, I'll make time for a proper celebration.
Oh, don't worry about it. Just the fact that you're giving us such a wonderful trip is more than enough. Samantha's kind words with a smile made me feel uneasy.
A trip is a gift?
Hearing a word that was unfamiliar to me, I asked Samantha to clarify. She seemed surprised by my question and explained the situation with a tone of shock.
Oh, isn't that right? I heard from him that this trip was fully funded by you since you couldn't join the trip. Wait, what?
I screamed out loud, completely unaware of this story. Samantha must have realized from my reaction that I knew nothing about it. She hurriedly continued her explanation, seemingly puzzled.
Isn't this trip arranged by you? He paid for everything using your credit card, so I thought it was a gift from you.
The trip included Samantha and Cody, of course, as well as my sister-in-law, Luna, and her husband, Tommy. 5 people in total. Even a conservative estimate for flight costs alone would be around $300 per person. With other expenses included, the total would easily surpass $1,500. Using such a significant amount of money without consultation was completely out of line. especially since I've been managing our living expenses. He doesn't gamble. His salary should be entirely at his disposal. He should have more than enough income to cover such costs himself. Yet here we are. With him not answering my calls, my emotions were filling with anger. Samantha, sensing my distress, spoke with concern.
Harper, are you okay? We'll repay the full amount later. Tyler wanted to cover all the travel expenses, which felt odd to us. Cody and I were planning to visit you later, since we haven't seen you in a while.
This trip might have been orchestrated under unbelievable circumstances. Samantha thought, and with a tone of concern, she spoke to me considerately.
You are not at fault. Please use that money for your enjoyment, as it's also a celebration for you. I'll make sure Tyler takes care of the bill. Could you tell me more about how this trip was planned?
I wondered what he was up to, not answering my calls. This trip must have been meticulously planned months in advance. He was using me, capitalizing on my ignorance. Such thoughts began to emerge at that moment. Then, as I heard more from Samantha, I learned a shocking truth.
The trip was initially proposed by Luna and Tommy.
Incredibly, it wasn't Tyler who suggested this, but Luna and Tommy, who always nitpicked at me. Tommy, an executive at a rival company. Tommy, looking down on me for being a female CEO and considering our companies our rivals, always seemed displeased when we met. Luna, always full of pride, had a grip on Tyler even before our marriage, and he couldn't stand up to her. It seems they didn't like him showing me any affection. It seems they disliked the affection Tyler showed towards me. Even though they conveniently used him themselves, they couldn't stand him being even slightly nice to me. Both Luna and Tommy, always competitive, disliked me, and I tried to keep my distance from them. However, they targeted me and persuaded Tyler to plan this trip. It's likely that his aggressive confrontation with me that day was instigated by Luna and Tommy. They probably wanted him to create a situation where I would be the unwanted one, as they thought they couldn't enjoy themselves with me around. They chose a day when they could make me an outcast and brought Tyler along to provide the funds.
I'm so sorry, I didn't know anything about this. Tyler told us not to contact you directly because you were busy.
Samantha apologized. If Samantha, Cody, and I, unaware of the plan, had communicated, the plan would have been exposed, potentially straining my relationship with Tyler. To prevent this, Samantha and Cody were instructed to restrict their actions. To prevent any disruption of their plan, it was necessary to impose certain restrictions on Samantha and Cody beforehand. For them, unaware of how busy my work schedule was, Tyler's advice was taken as an absolute directive. They adhered strictly to his words, deciding to thank me only after they returned from the trip.
Harper, did you give Tyler a credit card or something? He was making payments with a black card I've never seen before.
What? Samantha's frantic behavior suggested that Cody was also listening and had a question for me. The moment Cody mentioned the black card, I hastily checked the contents of my safe. The black card he referred to was the important credit card used for company expenses. Only Tyler and I, who knew the safe's password, could access it. I had trusted him enough not to suspect him of stealing, but the credit card that should have been in the safe was missing, revealing that he had been secretly embezzling company funds. As the accountant, he could freely manipulate the records. He had exploited his position, misusing company funds for personal gain. Realizing this fact, my anger reached its peak, and I shared the story with Samantha and Cody. Both of them were shocked to learn this astonishing fact. They must have been dumbfounded. Falling silent as if they had lost their words, Samantha seemed to be panicking in a flustered manner.
What should we do? Are we complicit in this embezzlement?
We'll return to the US immediately with Tyler. Even though we didn't know, we're still complicit. We'll accept our punishment when we get back. Cody's words, full of responsibility, made me deny their need for punishment. It wasn't Samantha and Cody's fault. They were completely unaware of the scheme orchestrated by Luna, Tommy, and Tyler. Punishing them was out of the question for me.
Cody, that's unnecessary.
You two were deceived by Tyler and knew nothing. You're not at fault. But I can't let them get away with this. Can you help me with something I'm planning? Sure. I've been ignoring what Tyler has been doing all this time, and that was my mistake. He's been making a fool of me, thinking an apology would suffice if he got caught. This isn't just a marital issue, it's a company issue. I need to teach him a lesson. All right. We'll help with anything we can. With this, I laid out a revenge plan to them. I was surprised at my own capacity for such a scheme, but my affection for Tyler had clearly ended. Filled with hatred and anger, I revealed my terrifying plan, initially bewildering Samantha and Cody. However, realizing their responsibility as parents, they made a decision. They agreed to my plan, choosing to be my allies in this matter. During this discussion, Tyler unexpectedly called me. I ended the call with Samantha and Cody to answer his call. What's up? Having a family trip and still wanting to talk about something important? His sarcastic words only increased my irritation. You took your time to call. What were you doing? Just having some drinks at a bar with Mom and the others. This confirmed his lie. I had just been on the phone with Samantha and Cody, and there was no noisy bar in the background. Moreover, there was no reason for them to lie to me. Likely, Tyler was out drinking with Luna and Tommy. His words, so dismissive of our time and relationship, confirmed my feelings had completely cooled. Oh, is that so? By the way, Tyler, you haven't been doing anything with the company's expenses, have you? He was clearly startled by my sudden question. What's this all of a sudden? His tone, usually light and cheerful, turned serious, unlike anything I had heard from him before. Was this his true nature? His change in tone, seeing me as an adversary, prompted me to respond firmly. I was just wondering, considering an audit is coming up soon for the company. You're suspecting me? His defensive response to a simple question indicated his guilt. His poor reply made me laugh involuntarily. What's the matter? I was just worried and asked, and now you think I'm suspecting you. Did you do something wrong? Nothing like that. But hey, when I get back home, the house isn't going to be a mess, is it? Suddenly changing his demeanor and trying to switch the topic, his actions became even more suspicious. Why couldn't he realize that such behavior only made him more suspect? I was almost impressed by his lack of intelligence. What do you think? I'm busy with work, too. Stop it. I hate the idea of coming back to a dirty house with bugs and stuff, you know? A wife is her husband's housekeeper, and if you defy, I'll divorce you. Even the executive director often threatens his wife with that. I might have to do the same. You wouldn't like that, right? So, keep the house clean. I had never seen he and the executive director being friendly. What he was saying now was probably his true feelings. But, perhaps aware of his weaker position, he used someone else as a shield, making me sigh in exasperation at his patheticness. Sure, I'll be careful. There was no need to continue the conversation with him. He was completely underestimating me. Using company funds and embezzling. I could have him arrested for embezzlement. I won't show mercy, even to my husband. But that alone wouldn't satisfy me. After hanging up with him, I immediately made a call to a certain place. The next day, as I was busy preparing for a fashion show, I received several calls. Of course, it was Tyler. I noticed his calls late at night, while I was out for a certain reason. Fortunately, Mia was with me, so she drove while I answered his call. You're late. What have you been doing? His rough tone, heard through the speakerphone, surprised both Mia and me. Just work, what else? Harper, did you do something yesterday? Something? What do you mean? Don't play dumb. Tell me the truth. What did you do? Tyler was in total panic, and in the background, I could hear several Mexican men confronting Luna, Tommy, and Tyler. It sounds noisy. What's happening? It's nothing. He suddenly became flustered after shouting. Realizing he'd be at a disadvantage if he spoke out, he struggled to find the right words. His behavior was so bizarre that I decided to explain the situation to him. It was time for him to taste true despair. Too bad.
You were supposed to be enjoying a lavish time in Mexico, but now you've woken up from that dream overnight, right? But it's your own fault for misusing someone else's money. Did you do something, Harper?
While he was reacting strangely, I explained what I had done the previous day. I contacted the president of the credit card company I had a contract with. Despite the late hour, the president, always grateful for my patronage, agreed to suspend the company's credit card early in the morning. If a credit card is misused, the company doesn't have to pay the shop, so the shop bears the full loss. However, this time, since the payment was supposed to be made in full at the hotel checkout, Tyler, unable to use the stopped card, was now stranded and being questioned at the hotel reception.
Tyler, Mom and Dad have already checked out. The cab they reserved took them away, so there's no one to pick you up.
Luna, cornered, desperately asked Tyler what to do. Hearing this, he became even more panicked and turned his anger towards me.
Doing such a thing, you think you can get away with it? Are you okay with us getting divorced?
Please do.
In fact, I prefer a divorce from a husband who embezzles company funds. I've already spoken to the lawyer, and will proceed with the divorce proceedings.
He, flustered by my unshaken demeanor, realized his mistake.
I've been silent about everything you have done so far. There was truth in him supporting my work, and I was grateful to him. But I've reached my limit. But,
realizing his dire situation, he pathetically acknowledged my fury. The reception, relentlessly demanding payment, showed no mercy. He, relying on an interpreter, couldn't speak Spanish at all. Listening to this, I had an idea and suggested to him to pass the phone to them.
Nobody there speaks Spanish, right? Can you let me talk to them?
I'll explain for you.
Will you help me? I'm glad to switch.
Thinking that I had changed my mind after his apparent regret, he quickly handed his mobile phone to the hotel reception. I explained the situation to the reception in Spanish, and they quickly understood. To ease any concerns, I got their contact information, which Mia noted down. They happily agreed to cooperate with my deal. After talking to me, they returned the phone to Tyler.
What happened? Did you sort it out?
Yes, I took care of it. Now it's up to you guys to manage.
Really? You're a lifesaver, Harper. I love you.
With that, he was called back to the reception. Unaware of our conversation, he ended the call and followed them. Are you okay? This might turn into a big problem.
Just perfect. It's the right kind of hell for them.
An hour later, as expected, Tyler called many times. When I answered, he was in a pathetic state.
What's going on, Harper? What is this place?
He showed me a video call of a slum street. Tyler, Luna, and Tommy had been taken to the slums and stripped of all their belongings. The fact that they ended up in one of Mexico's most dangerous slums was unexpected. The receptionist had told me. I was a fan of Harper. I'll arrange the punishment, leave it to me. But I never expected it would be this place. I laughed out loud at the location, far beyond my expectations. Lucky you.
Still alive in the most dangerous place in Mexico. It's a miracle you're alive. That's impossible. Wait, Harper. What do you mean? Explain, and come to help us right now.
From the video call, it was clear they could hear my voice. The homeless people surrounding them were causing a commotion.
You were causing trouble for Harper. It's your fault. You three should reflect.
Samantha and Cody appeared on the call, surprising Luna and the others.
Mom and Dad, what are you doing? Harper's acquaintance flew us back on a private jet to the US, and Harper came to pick us up. We knew you were trying to trap Harper. We asked her to do whatever she wanted.
At that moment, the homeless people behind them started questioning Luna, Tyler, and Tommy. The slum residents were merciless, even to women, if they seemed to have anything valuable. As they argued on the video call in the dangerous streets, it was natural they'd become prey. I spoke to the locals in the background, smiling. These men have been misusing my credit card and have been terrible to me every night. Do whatever you like with them. I want them to see hell. They agreed, saying, leave it to us. The call ended abruptly, likely because the phone was taken. Since then, they have been living in fear in the slums. Treated poorly by the locals and unable to afford a return to the US. They were effectively trapped abroad. I confirmed the events with the hotel reception afterward. Their acquaintance, apparently a boss in the slums, agreed to take care of Tyler and the others in exchange for a treat of fine liquor. The agreement was made on the condition that they'd be safe from life-threatening situations. In return, I agreed to sing at their hotel, the only song I released during my active years.
The song you released is still my treasure. Your thanks can be in the form of a song, so come stay at our hotel. I'll tell the manager to give you the best service.
With this, I successfully took my revenge on Tyler and the others. Since then, I've managed to divorce Tyler with the help of the men from the hotel. I feel relieved and am spending enjoyable times with Samantha and Cody. Luna and Tommy were fired for their unauthorized absence from work. Without their phones, they couldn't contact anyone. Samantha and Cody explained the situation well, so it didn't become a police matter, and no one else cared about them. Thus, my ties with Tyler were completely severed. Since then, I've been focusing on my work and enjoying life. Occasionally, I call the hotel reception to check on Tyler and the others, who are still living in a hellish environment. I feel no pity for them, despite the severity of their punishment. I only asked to spare their lives and now enjoy my own life to the fullest.
You're definitely younger and better than Kaylee. Yay, happy! Let's date a bit longer.
Exhausted from my business trip, I was greeted by such words from my husband Vince and my sister Celine. After mocking me, I started to hear their unpleasant voices. For a moment, I thought about yelling at them. Instead, I quickly regained my composure and took out my mobile phone. Then I slightly opened the bedroom door and recorded decisive evidence. They were too engrossed to notice. How dare you two belittle me like this? I won't forgive them. I've been insulted too much. No need for mercy. I sent the evidence I recorded to Carl, Celine's husband. We prepared to confront them. When they saw us, they were shocked.
Kaylee? Why are you here? Right. And why are you here too, Carl?
Kaylee told me. At those words, Celine glared at me. To her, I extended an envelope. Their faces turned pale upon seeing its contents. My name is Kaylee. I'm a 33-year-old working mother, raising my son Alex while working hard. I'm not blood related to my parents. My mother was infertile and adopted me from a foster home. You are such a sweet child, my dear Kaylee. Yes, we're so glad you became our daughter. I'm deeply grateful to my parents who accepted me. A year after I was adopted, my mother got pregnant with her own daughter after fertility treatments. The baby was named Celine. Since then, we've been raised as sisters, not related by blood. Kaylee, what are your plans for the future? Don't hold back for us. I actually have a university I want to attend. Then, I left my hometown for college. I didn't return after graduating, joining a company in Boston. I've been successful in my field of expertise. For about 10 years, I've worked hard every day. Kaylee, can I talk to you? One day, my boss called me in. The discussion was about recommending me for a chief position. I joyfully accepted and returned to my desk. You seem happy, what's up? Then, my husband Vince spoke to me. He was younger than me, and I was his mentor at one point. After the mentoring period, he actively pursued me. Actually, it was love at first sight. Will you date me? Overwhelmed by his enthusiasm, I agreed to date him. Eventually, we married when I got pregnant. We then had our lovely son, Alex. The early days were tough with work and child rearing, but Vince's support made it enjoyable. On one holiday, my family went out together.
Is that Kaylee?
Oh. Can it be? Celine? A young woman called out to us. At first, I didn't recognize her, but soon realized it was my stepsister Celine.
Long time no see, Vince.
Hi, Celine.
You guys bring Alex, so it's a family outing? I'd love to join.
Her words made me uncomfortable. We were shopping for our son. If she joined, she'd want to go here and there, making it hard to buy what we needed.
Today is a day for the three of us to shop leisurely. So, you can't join. Why not? You're so mean.
Ignoring her whims, I pushed Vince and Alex's back and started walking. Still complaining, she tried to follow, but we managed to shake her off and entered a nearby store for lunch.
Oh dear, I can't believe we ran into each other here.
As eating, I reminisced about the past. Our parents had loved both the adopted and biological child equally. They had cherished me more than ever. It's because Kaylee came that the baby did too. Kaylee brought us happiness. Therefore, I intended to treasure Celine too. However, my feelings didn't reach her. As she grew up, she became demanding.
Kaylee always gets everything. I want what Kaylee has, too. I want what Kaylee has. I really want it. Give it to me.
It started with a keychain, though it was something I bought matching with a friend. Under strong pleading and seeing our troubled parents, I gave it to her. That seemed to encourage her. After that, she kept saying everything was unfair and tried to take things from me. Luckily, our parents were on my side and scolded her, and the age gap limited what she could take.
I'm being harassed by my sister.
Unsatisfied with the situation, Celine targeted my friends next. She went around, saying,
I'm bullied because we're not blood related.
She was good at crying, and my classmates started avoiding me. Some even said terrible things or harassed me.
That's impossible. Kaylee has always adored Celine.
One of my friends, Dina, who bought the matching keychain, believed in me. She fought back against the classmates who harassed me and warned Celine.
Don't lie.
So, Celine and Dina never got along. After distancing from Celine when I went to college, life had been peaceful. But recently, she got married and started living nearby. I sighed at the unexpected encounter.
Mom, are you okay?
Worried, Alex spoke to me. I smiled and brushed it off. Are you really okay? You're worried about Celine, right? While resuming eating, Vince asked me. I told him about Celine, especially something I hadn't spoken about until then. I didn't know she was like that. Vince and Celine had only met a few times, at family meetings or our wedding. I also hadn't brought up Celine in conversation before. Why not vent to Dina? I don't know Celine well enough.
Dina?
Yes. How about next week? I'll take care of Alex in the meantime. I nodded to his suggestion and contacted Dina right away. A week later, I finally got to talk to Dina. Sorry to keep you waiting, Kaylee.
No, I should be sorry for the sudden call.
I heard about the encounter and rushed to investigate. When I mentioned Celine, Dina said and pulled out an investigation report. I was impressed with her skills. Dina used her observational and acting skills as a detective. Her abilities were top-notch.
Impressive as always. Let's see it.
I looked over the report. It detailed Celine's recent actions. Even after I left home, she continued to play the villain and did as she pleased. She played the role of the poor little sister, tormented by her adoptive elder sister. It seemed she used that narrative to attract men, but those relationships always ended quickly.
I can't believe such good parents ended up with a child like that.
Reading it, I couldn't help but feel astonished. Hey, how are you doing with Vince? Suddenly, Dina asked me so. Tilting my head, I replied that everything was as usual.
He's really involved in parenting, and he's even taking care of Alex today.
Responding so, she looked somewhat troubled. Again, I tilted my head.
Is something wrong?
No, it's nothing. If that's the case, it's fine. She denied my inquiry. After chatting for a while, we parted with smiles.
Oh, Alex and Vince?
Huh?
Hi, Mom.
On the way home, I met up with Vince, who was leading Alex by the hand.
Were you guys out somewhere?
Yeah, we thought of getting out of the house for a bit, so we went shopping.
Oh, really? Did you have fun?
At my question, Alex nodded with a hesitant, yeah. He tilted his head. He was sticking close to me without saying anything. Come on, let's get home quickly. Though puzzled, I was hurried home by Vince. Throughout, Alex stayed close to me.
What do you want for dinner?
I'll prepare it, Vince said, entering the kitchen.
Should I help?
No, it's fine. Can you keep Alex company? He seems to have missed Mom. Thanking him for his words, I turned to face Alex. Then, as if deciding something, listen, Mom? He began to speak in a voice low enough that Vince couldn't hear. Shocked, but determined, I made a decision. Soon after, I received a call from Dina. Kaylee, I need to talk to you about Vince. She told me a truth, and we decided to take action.
I wonder if you can go with him.
It happened shortly afterward. I was asked to go on a business trip. When I consulted Vince,
Go ahead.
he replied casually.
As for Alex, can I leave him with my parents?
That's fine, but I can take care of him?
You come home later than me. I'm worried.
Acknowledging my concern, that's true. He agreed. With Alex's consent, I left him with my parents. After explaining the situation to them, they said,
Leave it to us.
Then, I left Alex with them and headed to the business trip location. I planned to go with a colleague.
That's the situation. You might need to help.
Understood. I discussed various things with him and made plans. I told Vince I would be gone for a week, but the work finished early, and I returned in 3 days.
Then, I'll see you soon.
After parting with my colleague, we each headed home. I didn't contact Vince at that point, but called Dina. After receiving some advice, I steeled myself and entered the house.
I'm home.
I called out, but of course, there was no reply. Vince should have been at work at that time. However, I sensed someone in the house and saw familiar coats, including his. So, I stealthily entered the house. As expected, voices came from the bedroom.
You're definitely younger and better than Kaylee. Yay, happy. Let's date a bit longer.
Exhausted from my business trip, I was greeted by such words from Vince and Celine. After mocking me, I started to hear their unpleasant voices. For a moment, I thought about yelling at them. Instead, I quickly regained my composure and took out my mobile phone. Then, I slightly opened the bedroom door and recorded decisive evidence. They were too engrossed to notice.
How dare you two belittle me like this?
I won't forgive them. I've been insulted too much. No mercy was needed, I suppose. I had sent the evidence I shot to Celine's husband, Carl. Thanks for the photo. He finally made a move, huh? Carl hurried over as soon as he could. Seems he also reached out to Dina. Having them both come gave me a sense of relief. Well, shall we storm in? We got ready and headed to the scene.
What are you two doing?
The two of them were shocked to see us.
Kaylee? Why are you here? Right. And why are you here too, Carl?
Kaylee told me. At those words, Celine glared at me. I responded by handing her an envelope.
Answer my question too.
That's when Vince said, looking my way. I thought it was a hassle, but I decided to respond.
My business trip ended in 3 days. I was also accompanying on the trip as her colleague.
In fact, Celine's husband Carl was my colleague as well as Dina's real brother. So, I was able to discuss the situation with him during the trip and even managed to call Dina.
Are you satisfied? Why don't you check the contents?
Dina urged with a laugh, but her eyes weren't smiling, those made them both shudder. When they saw what was inside, their faces turned pale. This is the infidelity I caught on camera. Good shots, aren't they? Right, the contents were of their affair. They never expected such evidence to surface.
Why is there such a thing?
I've been investigating you for a while.
What?
Actually, Dina had been investigating Vince for a different case. Vince wasn't just involved with Celine, but also with his coworker at the office. Eventually, the coworker's parents suspected him and happened to hire Dina's detective agency.
You've been messing around with others too.
Upon seeing the name, Dina realized it was my husband, Vince. She started investigating after sensing his betrayal. The investigation revealed that Vince had been approaching various women, not only Celine but the other female staff. That's,
Can't you be satisfied with just me?
Vince got pale with trembling. Whereas, Celine was angry at the revelation of his other involvements. "You're hardly in a position to complain," Carl said coldly, silencing her instantly. He glared coldly at Celine. "What are you even doing, even being married to me?"
That's, well.
Celine scrambled for an excuse with teary eyes. Standing next to Carl, Dina was making her arms crossed. Their angry expressions were so similar as siblings. Thinking so, I began packing.
Kaylee? What are you doing?
"I'm packing because I'm divorcing you," Vince asked fearfully, but I told him clearly.
Wait for me. Forgive me.
He begged, but I ignored. "I'll carry your luggage." "Oh, thank you." "My pleasure. I'll have your luggage sent to your parents' house." Carl helped me with my luggage, and we left the house smiling. Although Vince and Celine screamed after us, Dina scolded sharply.
Enough already. You idiots.
They immediately silenced with a scream. Leaving them behind, we left the house briskly. After I parted ways with Dina and Carl, I returned to my parents' house where Alex was. They were indeed cheating. I had to tell my parents that Celine was having an affair with Vince. Hearing that, they sighed deeply and apologized to me. "Don't apologize, it's not your fault." I had been informed about the affair by Dina beforehand. The day after she told me, my parents shared it with me. I can't keep this to myself. The evidence from Dina alone would have been enough for a divorce settlement. But somewhere in my heart, I wanted to believe in Vince. That's why I didn't file for divorce until I saw it with my own eyes. "Alex, were you a good boy?" Feeling sorry for my parents, I changed the subject. Then, my parents smiled. "He was as good as you. A really kind boy." Alex smiled happily, being praised by his beloved grandparents. I was glad I had left him here. "Can we stay here a bit longer?" At my request, my parents readily agreed. A few hours later, while chatting with my parents and eating snacks, Celine barged in.
There you are. It's all your fault. I'm getting a divorce from Carl. If only you weren't here.
She yelled at me, glaring, just as I was about to hug scared Alex and counter.
Get out. You're no daughter of ours.
My parents shouted back at her instead. Then, her attention shifted to my parents.
What are you two talking about? I'm your real daughter. Our daughter is only Kaylee. You became unbearable, spoiled by my mother. We can't think of you as our daughter anymore.
My parents responded in a dismayed tone to Celine's words. Certainly, it was our grandmother who led Celine astray. She never accepted me as an adopted child, and doted on Celine as her biological child. As a result, Celine never listened to our parents and used me, the adopted one, as she pleased. "I always wanted to be true sisters with you." Celine seemed angered by that.
You always act so superior. Even though you're not a real child, it's annoying. You even have a child. I couldn't even have one with Carl.
She ranted. True, she had no children. But that was her own doing. After continuing relationships with men, she became infertile. "You have no right to say that to me."
Shut up.
She raised her hand to me. Just as I braced myself, I saw Alex step between us. "This is bad, he might get hurt."
Enough.
Before she could reach Alex, my father grabbed her hand and threw her out. Watching her leave, I hugged Alex. "Don't do anything dangerous again." "Sorry, I just wanted to protect Mom." As my parents said, Alex really was a good boy. I thanked him and stroked his head. After that, Celine apparently reluctantly went to Vince's place. Carl and I demanded a settlement from them both in the divorce. They had multiple partners, so the amount was substantial. Vince got sued for marriage fraud by his colleagues too. Dina updated me on their situation later. Furthermore, Vince was caught cheating during work hours. Of course, he was fired eventually. Before he was resigned, he approached me once.
Please, Kaylee. Help me.
He was lying in wait outside my company and clung to me as I arrived. Ignoring him and trying to enter the office, he kept obstructing me. "If you're going to cling like that, why did you cheat? I know you approached them."
No way.
True, Vince was the one who approached first. That day, after I went to bed, he found Celine's address and visited her during a business trip. She was at home and welcomed him. Kaylee made you upset yesterday, he had said, and they apparently started their affair. You confronted Celine for me, Dina. After we each returned home, I told Dina about Celine's visit. Knowing that Alex was almost hurt, Dina got angered and went to the thrown-out Celine's place. She was caught by Dina without a chance to escape. It seemed she spilled everything when confronted, due to her trauma. Did you really think I'd help you?
You know, I was serious about you.
What is he even talking about? If that was the case, he shouldn't have cheated in the first place. As I was thinking so and about to call the police on my mobile phone, please stop. I will sue for business obstruction. Just then Carl arrived. He pulled me to his side and gave Vince a cold look. You are not needed in our company.
Huh?
In fact, Carl is the next president of the company. He was training to become that position under my mentoring.
You're kidding.
Unaware of that, Vince looked at him in disbelief. It's no lie. Just leave. From his demeanor, it was clear he wasn't reconsidering. Disheartened, Vince left. On the other hand, Celine had knew about Carl being the next company president. Moreover, she was genuinely in love with him. Getting divorced was really hard. Carl said that, and I patted him on the shoulder. He smiled at me, looking a bit troubled. Then later, I was called by the current president. Excuse me. Thanks for your time. A great help for Carl. And it's a pity about Vince. He began to discuss the matter, looking somewhat complex. Troubled by the recent events, Carl would be training at a subsidiary for a while. Indeed, physical distance from Celine might be better. So, I want to entrust you with the project that was planned for Carl. Of course, the promotion to chief we originally planned remains. I felt honored and accepted. Without Vince, I could still live well. My parents agreed to look after Alex as I would be busy. In fact, Vince had never looked after Alex when we were married. I was actually staying with Grandpa and Grandma. Alex was left with Vince's parents' house, and it seemed they weren't happy about it. He secretly told me that day. I vowed not to let him go through that again. Fortunately, my parents, who were not related by blood, cherished him as their own grandchild. With no more worries, I dedicated myself even more to my work. It seemed Carl successfully distanced himself from Celine. He's doing well in the subsidiary. I had a tea party with Dina when things settled down. She told me about Carl. Carl has always been hardworking. He'll be fine. Yeah, but could you visit him sometime? I'll take care of Alex. She asked, and I tilted my head. I didn't mind meeting him, but the way Dina said it, it seemed like she wanted us to meet alone. Well, you'll understand once you meet him. She smiled mischievously. I didn't understand the situation, but I decided to meet Carl. Dina was looking after Alex at a distance. Were you surprised I wanted to meet? Yes, well, I've been wondering how you were doing since then. Thanks to you. It's still new, but I'm trying my best. He spoke with a smile. I felt bad for the trouble caused by Celine, and wanted him to find happiness. Then, looking serious, he gazed at me. I like you, Kaylee. What? I was shocked by his sudden confession. Apparently, he had liked me from the beginning. However, due to the age difference, I only saw him like a brother. So, he had given up on me. I got together with Celine when she comforted me. Celine knew he liked me and took advantage of it. After I married Vince, Carl completely moved on and decided to marry Celine. I did love Celine. I don't know what she thought or why she approached me, but she was a support. Celine must have truly loved Carl too. That's why she chose to marry him among many men. Therefore, she was so furious at me for the divorce. When I found out about Celine's betrayal through Dina, I was quite shocked. Carl, you've had it tough. But I'm sorry, I can't feel that way yet. Besides, I want to prioritize Alex now. I understand. I'm not in a hurry for an answer. Carl said that with a laugh. Feeling his loving gaze, my heart raced. Mom, are you done talking? Yes, we're done. I turned my attention to Alex, who had run up to us. Picking up the now heavier Alex, he smiled happily in my arms. Alex. I hope we can continue to be friends. You and I are already friends, aren't we? Carl is Alex's uncle, and they often play together. With a nod from Alex, Carl replied with a smile. You're right. Our time together might lessen, but I hope we can stay as close as before. Sure. Alex nodded with a smile, and Carl gently stroked his head. Then, Carl would come to see us whenever he found time. Alex had grown quite fond of him, who paid more attention to him than Vince ever did.
Kaylee! Alex!
Oh my goodness. Why are you here? While playing in the park, the disheveled Vince appeared. Apparently, Celine had been rampaging daily since her divorce from Carl. Both having paid a hefty divorce settlement, they couldn't afford to replace the furniture and appliances Celine destroyed. Thus, he looked unkempt. Dad's not around anymore, huh? Let's be together again, the three of us. I don't need you, Dad. Alex cut off his words firmly. He then froze.
What?
Are you saying you hate Mom and me?
No, I'm not.
Carl is here for us now. So, we don't need you anymore. Rejected so clearly, Vince left quietly. Watching his lonely back, I turned back to Alex and Carl with a smile. Alex, would you be happy if Carl became your dad? Yes. I'd be happy. Alex nodded with a beaming smile. At that, Carl's eyes teared up. Now, no crying if you want to be a dad. Sure. Let me ask again. Please make me your husband and Alex's dad. I nodded with a smile at his words. After being rejected by us, Vince seemed to lose his soul. He even quit the part-time job he had been doing. Of course, Celine was furious, but she just let it slide. Finally fed up with Vince, she left and disappeared into the night. Vince was apparently taken back to his parents' house. It seems he really did love me, after all. I heard about Vince from my former in-laws. When they asked if I could possibly reconcile with Vince, I replied promptly, I already have someone who cherishes both Alex and me. Hearing that, they quickly gave up. Hey, Alex. Do you want to see your former dad's parents? No. I don't want to see them for a while. My former in-laws, who had neglected Alex due to frequent babysitting, apologized after learning the situation. However, Alex seemed to want to keep his distance. With Vince also at their house, we decided to become estranged. We no longer need them in our lives. Carl is coming over next Saturday. Really? I have so much I want to talk to Dad about. I stroked Alex's head as he said that with a smile. After that, we started dating. Then, when Carl returned from the subsidiary to the head office, we decided to move out of my parents' house. We planned to live together in a new home, the three of us. Please marry me. Yes, I'd be happy to. Soon after Carl's proposal, we got married. My parents and Dina blessed us. May you be happy this time? And Alex expressed his joy. I'm happy Carl is becoming my dad. I'm sure Carl will definitely make you happy. Dina had seen Carl's love for me and his heartbreak. That's why she encouraged him when I divorced Vince. I know both Kaylee's and Carl's good points. That's why I want you two to be happy. Dina had always helped and supported me. For her sake, I must be as happy as possible.
So, let's go out for a celebration drink next time.
Sorry, I can't do that. Huh? Dina looked bewildered as I smiled and gently rubbed my belly. Realizing what it meant, she beamed. Could it be? I'm expecting our second child. So, I can't join you for drinks.
Wow. I'm as happy as if it's my own.
She genuinely seemed thrilled. Her laughter made me smile too. Alex is excited too, saying, I'm going to be a big bro.
Wow, that's so like Alex. He'll definitely be a kind big brother.
When I told him about having a little sibling, he was overjoyed. Carl was the same, lifting me up in excitement until, don't strain Mom's body. Alex scolded him. So, Dina, I want you to help us choose a name.
Really? I'll think hard about it.
Dina instantly started pondering, looking thoughtful. Watching her, I smiled. Now, our family, Alex, Carl, the baby in my belly, and I, will build a home filled with laughter. I pledged that in my heart. I'm Isabella. I really dislike my parents. What bothers me the most is their obsession with what others think. They use their affectionate behavior towards me to win over people's approval. It seems like that's all that matters to them. So, at home, they were very strict with me. I was constantly nagged about etiquette and how to speak properly, down to the smallest detail. Naturally, I rebelled against that, but they never listened to what I had to say. All that mattered to them was appearing as good people in the eyes of others. They wanted me to play the role of a quiet, well-behaved child. As a young girl, I just convinced myself that it was how things were supposed to be. How long would I have to endure this? Would I have to live with this dissatisfaction forever? I want to get out of this house as soon as possible. Even as a child, I was consumed by this thought. But unexpectedly, a turning point came much sooner. It was when I was in elementary school. My sister Chloe was born. And she was much more pretty than me. It was only a matter of time before our parents' interest shifted from me to her. Eventually, all their love and attention fully turned to her. Thankfully, it allowed me to distance myself from my parents. I can finally be free, I thought, but it turned out they weren't done with me. I realized it during my senior year of high school. It was when I told my parents I wanted to get a job. Of course, I had always thought about leaving home since I was little. Graduating high school was my chance to leave. I had been looking forward to that opportunity for so long. But then, my father said something completely unexpected.
No way! You're going to college!
I was shocked by his forceful tone. Lately, my parents had been so focused on Chloe. I thought they would easily agree. Maybe he had some expectations for my future. Why do I have to go to college? With a glimmer of hope, I asked him. His response shattered my expectations completely.
You need a decent education to marry well, you know.
So that was it. I finally understood why my parents were so concerned about appearances. They were planning to use my marriage prospects to make their own lives easier.
I want to work!
I protested.
Then, are you going to pay for your moving expenses yourself?
He retorted. His words left me speechless. Given their concern for appearances, my parents had always given me an allowance. But I didn't have enough to afford a move. Moreover, my high school prohibited part-time jobs. There was virtually no way for me to earn the moving expenses myself. He knew it, which is why he said it. As I struggled to respond, he laughed.
We've spent quite a lot on raising you. Maybe you should pay us back for that?
That's...
If you don't like it, go to college.
He concluded. In the end, I couldn't argue back. But if I looked at it differently, they were offering to send me to college for free. As much as they might want to, they couldn't just force marriage or arranged matches on me against my will. So, I decided to obediently go to college and then escape after graduation. After that, I enrolled in a local college. But since my education was just for the sake of appearances, I wasn't allowed to live alone. My father never really considered my academic pursuits at college.
I'll pay your tuition, but in return, you'll have to work part-time and contribute to the household expenses.
He said shortly after I started college. How much should I contribute? I asked.
Let's say $500 a month.
I wanted to focus on my studies, now that I was in college. But he would never listen to such a request. Reluctantly, I juggled part-time work with my college lectures. The amount I had to contribute as living expenses was no small sum. With reports and test studies, I could only work a few hours each day. It was a barely manageable amount. But I don't want to waste this opportunity. So, I sacrificed sleep, splitting my time between studying and part-time work. Eventually, I graduated from college and even secured a job at a real estate company. Now I can finally leave home. That's what I thought, but my plan was naive. When I told my father about my job, he said,
"It's fine for you to work, but you can't live alone." "Why not?"
I asked, puzzled.
"What if you end up with some bad guy if you live alone?" "Huh? Anyway, stay at home until you get married." "That's ridiculous."
"Or can you pay back your college tuition right now?"
"If so, I might consider letting you live alone." "That's impossible. I've been contributing part-time earnings to the household." "Then, give up on living alone,"
he said with a loud laugh. It seemed he had planned everything. Anticipating that, He had made me contribute to the household expenses. In the end, it was a life dictated by him. Was there no way for me to fight back? With these worries, I started working. But then, a new problem arose. He quit his job shortly after I started working. The reason was back pain. Of course, that was just a facade. He just didn't want to work anymore, and was clearly relying on my income. Still, I couldn't abandon my family. I had even researched ways to cut ties with them, wanting to become a stranger. But there's no way to completely sever ties with family. Parents will always be parents. There's no escaping that. Yet, I hadn't given up on escaping from home. Believing that one day I could live on my own, I diligently saved money. But my father would surely notice my plans. Several years had passed since I started working. One day, when I got home from work, there was a cake on the table. "What's this about?" I asked Chloe, and she replied with a smile, "I got accepted into college." "Really? Congratulations."
Thank you.
Chloe clapped her hands in joy. I felt happy for her too, but then my father's next words instantly dampened my mood. "Okay, so you'll be paying her tuition."
What? I have to pay it?
"Of course. I can't work because of my injury." What a thing to say. He looks perfectly healthy to anyone, but arguing with him would be pointless. It's true that he has no income. If I don't pay for Chloe's education, she won't be able to go to college. He knows that and is unabashed about it. That means my plans to live alone are pushed even further away. In his eyes, he gets Chloe's education and keeps me from moving out. Chloe is a good girl. Her presence allowed me, as a young girl, to keep my distance from our parents. I may not be close to Chloe, but I owe her that much. So, I decided to pay for her tuition. Looks like living alone just got further away. That night, I ended up drinking alone late into the night, grumbling about my father. Later, Chloe safely started college. I worked even harder to pay for her tuition. However, such a lifestyle naturally took its toll, and I started to feel worn out. One day, distracted by fatigue, I left my wallet at the entrance and left the house. Arriving at the bus station, I reached for my IC card to board the bus and realized I didn't have my wallet. Shoot. I left my wallet. I quickly remembered leaving it at the entrance. I called my mother, who was at home, and she said, "Chloe took your wallet to you. She had to go to college for something." "She did?" "She said she'd drop it off on her way." I immediately started running back home. Then, a few minutes from the bus stop, near a grocery store, I ran into Chloe. She was carrying a shopping bag from the store. "Chloe, do you have my wallet?" "Here it is." She handed me my wallet. I immediately checked the contents.
"You're so suspicious."
She teased. "I have the company's card in there. If I lose it, it's trouble for the company." The corporate card and the IC card were both inside. The money was untouched, and I felt relieved. "Thanks, Chloe." I thanked her and hurried back to the bus stop. Thanks to her, I managed to avoid being late. I need to be more careful from now on. That night, I bought a thank you cake for Chloe. She was delighted, and I was grateful. But at that time, I was making a big mistake. Some days later, Aria from accounting came to me at work. "Can I talk to you for a sec, Isabella?" She was a very reliable colleague. She often gave me clothes and cosmetics she didn't need, as I was living frugally. In many ways, I owed her a lot, both professionally and personally. So, I thought she wanted to talk about something personal, but it turned out to be a bit different, and Aria took me to a private place. "What's going on, Aria?" "Listen. I wanted to ask you, have you ever used the company card for personal reasons?" The company card she referred to was the corporate card. Designed for managing expenses in one place, the company had issued these cards to employees. Of course, as a salesperson, I also had a company-issued card. However, the charges were to be billed to the corporate account. So, using the card for personal reasons would be immediately noticeable. I think I've only used it during work hours," I replied, feeling anxious. I didn't recall doing anything wrong, but I couldn't completely rule out the possibility of it being used without my knowledge. As I was pondering, she said, Actually, your card was used at a grocery store. It looks like it was for buying water. Do you remember? Grocery store, water. I thought hard about it. Then, I remembered the day I forgot my wallet. For a brief moment that day, Chloe had my wallet. I normally never let anyone else handle my wallet, especially at work. Therefore, if someone else used the card, it had to have been Chloe on that day. Well, do you know the date it was used? I didn't want to suspect Chloe. I asked Arya, hoping to prove it wasn't her. If the card was used on a different day, then she wouldn't be the culprit. I must have been absent-minded and accidentally used the company card. That's what I wanted to believe, but reality was harsh. The card had been used on the very day I forgot my wallet. Is there anything you can recall? Arya asked. On impulse, I blurted out, "Oh. I might have mistaken it for my IC card." Really? I sometimes buy water before work. I see. I'm really sorry about that. I paid the amount that had been charged right there. I made excuses in a panic, but Arya comforted me, saying, "Don't worry, I've made the same mistake before." I was worried it might happen again. Driven by anxiety, I asked Arya for a favor right then and there. "Are you sure? It'll be extra work for you, Isabella." "Yes. I don't want to repeat the same mistake." "Okay, I'll take care of it." "Thank you so much." Thus, I managed to avoid turning it into a big issue. But I knew there wouldn't be a second chance. If something similar happened again, it would surely be a major problem. That's why I took the initiative. That incident was a significant turning point for me. I had always thought Chloe was a good girl, but she was a child doted on by our father. She never rebelled against him. If she's aware of everything, maybe she's just pretending to be good, not just outside the house, but in front of me as well. At that moment, I found her smile strangely frightening. My parents were trying to use me for their own benefit. So, I was already cautious of them, especially my father. But now, I had to be wary of Chloe too. What should I do? The thought of living with my parents and Chloe became scary. I had always wanted to leave, but now more than ever. After much thought, I confided in my boyfriend, Timothy. "Why don't we get married then?" he said casually. I was at a loss for words. He smiled. "If we're married, you can leave your house. I'm a civil servant, so they probably won't object." That's true. He and I were classmates in college. We'd been dating for over 5 years, and I had been thinking it might be time. But I had my family to consider. I couldn't easily say yes to marriage. However, I had told him about my family's problems. He had listened and advised me on various things. Despite all that, he was still willing to marry me. "Please, I'd appreciate it." So, I decided to get married. But it wasn't just happiness filling me up. There were too many problems, especially with my father. It wasn't certain that he would agree to the marriage. I'll have to persuade him carefully. I decided to take my time convincing him. But as I hesitated to bring up the topic of marriage at home, time just passed by. Half a year went by like that. I need to say something soon, I thought to myself. Then, unexpectedly, my father and I got into an argument.
Enough. I've told you many times to marry the person I introduced. That's impossible. I'm seeing someone. What? Who is the guy? He's a civil servant. A good person.
He fell silent at my words and seemed to be thinking. I took the chance to say,
"He's willing to give a generous dowry. That should satisfy you, right?"
He looked hesitant. That could work. I decided to push through.
"How much should the dowry be?" $30,000.
I thought that was a lot. But when I mentioned it to Timothy, he agreed to provide it. Thus, with his help, I was able to leave my home. Once the decision was made, everything else went smoothly. I started preparing to move right away. Then, on a certain Sunday, I arranged for the movers to come. During the move, Chloe approached me.
"Just keep your promise to pay for my tuition, okay?"
That's fine, but can I ask you something? You've used my card without permission, haven't you?
Oh, you found out, huh?
She said, without any sign of remorse. I had tried several times to confront her about the truth, but never got the chance. I gathered my courage to ask, but it seemed like no big deal to her. Using someone else's card is a crime. Do you understand that? It's fine, we're family, aren't we? She replied, showing no guilt. I was infuriated. I'll deposit the tuition money into the designated account. But that's it. Consider it severance. Huh? Once I leave this house, we're strangers. Do whatever you want. She walked off with a scoff. Later that evening, when the moving was done, I went to the living room where my father was waiting. Where's the money? It's always about money with you. Here it is.
I've always dreamed of profiting from marrying you off to someone well off since you were born.
Well, this should be enough. I've contributed plenty to this house already.
Yeah, now it's all up to Chloe's future spouse.
He smirked, his comment dripping with sarcasm. He might keep coming back to ask for more money. That thought makes me angry. But when that time comes, I'll just have to turn him away. Then we had our last meal as a family. Chloe wasn't there, though. According to my mother, she was out with friends. Better not to see her. After the meal, I gathered my belongings and decided to leave the house. But as I was leaving, I ran into Chloe.
Oh? Still here, Isabella? Ah, right, here, I'm returning this.
Without a word, she handed something over. I looked down and saw it was the company card. I quickly checked my wallet.
Only realizing now? I took it when I was in your room.
You're so clueless. I clenched my teeth. Clearly, she had used it without permission. That's when it hit me. Chloe brazenly admitted.
I used your card for drinks and meals for about 100 people, so check it up.
Then, without being asked, she started telling me all about it. She talked about a reunion she had and going to an all-you-can-eat, one thing after another. She even mentioned choosing an expensive restaurant, thinking about the card's limit. That really made me angry. So, I retorted, who are you, exactly?
What? You were serious about us being strangers once you left home? But what about the tuition fee?
She kept bothering me about it.
The bank card for the tuition fees has been given to Dad,
I said, and quickly walked away. Afterwards, I joined Timothy and started our new married life. Nothing much changed, though. I continued working, and the only real change was our home. But that was the biggest change for me. I was filled with a sense of freedom I had never felt before. I hoped this happiness would last a long time while enjoying life with him. About half a year went by. One day at work, Chloe showed up.
You're here. Come out.
She caused a scene at the company reception. Hearing it, I rushed to the reception. Chloe.
There you are. What do you think you're doing, you liar?
She yelled the moment she saw me. She started shouting at me, showing me her bank card.
I got a call saying the tuition couldn't be withdrawn, and I was embarrassed, you know.
What are you talking about? I made sure to deposit it.
Huh? But it clearly hasn't been withdrawn.
Don't you even know how to check your bank card? Are you really a university student?
Of course I am, 4th year at a national university. I've even secured a job.
She yelled. Sighing, I explained. I deposited this year's $5,000 tuition fee. Here's the deposit record, see?
That's exactly it. That amount was withdrawn from the card. You must have done it.
It was you who withdrew it, right?
I don't even have a card. So it was you.
But I heard you paid for foods for 100 people with it, didn't I?
Foods? What foods?
Don't you remember paying for an all-you-can-eat for 100 people with the card? As I questioned her, her face turned pale. In a panic, she started making excuses.
I used your company card, but it's a corporate card, so.
Clearly, she didn't understand. So, I explained to her carefully. A corporate card withdraws from the corporate account. That's correct knowledge.
So, the card I used was.
But once, someone used my card without permission. So, I had the withdrawals changed to my personal account.
Personal account?
What I had was indeed a corporate card. That was when I realized. The withdrawals were being made from my personal account, not the corporate account. That setup, while involving more paperwork for expense claims, allowed for private use of the card. Essentially, it eliminated the need to carry multiple cards. Plus, if someone else used it, the company wouldn't suffer any damage. Meaning, when she paid for the drinks, it was already set to withdraw from my personal account. So, the amount for the drinks is gone. It's your responsibility since you used it.
What about the university tuition?
I paid what was asked of me. You'll have to figure out the rest. With that, she began to make even more noise. Eventually, the police arrived and restrained her.
No! That's not me.
What do you mean? You admitted to using my card.
That was...
I clearly told you. Using someone's card without permission is a crime.
But...
Think about what you've done. In the end, she was taken to the police station for questioning. However, I didn't file a complaint. I didn't see the need, especially since someone had uploaded her outburst at my company on social media. Unsurprisingly, it quickly drew a wave of criticism. She ended up being expelled from her university. After that, my parents, who concerned about appearances, moved to the countryside with her. It seemed they thought they could escape the scandal by leaving town. Their plan was to find a marriage partner for Chloe there and then extort money from him. But given their bad characters, it was unlikely to work. I heard they quickly got into trouble with Chloe's new partner.
Isabella! We're being sued for damages. Help us!
My father contacted me about a month after I moved. Causing trouble within just a month, they would likely repeat the same mistakes.
I'm sorry, but if you come to our house, I'll file a complaint about the previous incident.
Be prepared for that. After I said that, he stopped contacting me. But with no money and no job, I couldn't help but worry. So, I had a private investigator secretly check on them, and they turned out to be working together at a logistics warehouse. Apparently, it was the company of the person Chloe had clashed with. They must have been told to work off the debt if they couldn't pay it. Hearing they were working long hours in a gloomy warehouse, I felt a bit relieved. They should be able to pay off the damages and earn their living expenses. I decided to let them fend for themselves and keep working. Meanwhile, Timothy and I continued our happy married life. My job was going well, and my sales performance was steadily improving. With no family around, money was accumulating. All that good fortune made me a little apprehensive about the future. But for now, I want to fully enjoy this happiness I've finally attained with Timothy. You're not allowed in here. Linda blocked my way, standing right in front of me. I reconsidered, thinking maybe the funeral was not ready yet, but I was not just an attendee, I was a family member. I looked into Linda's face for an answer, but there was none written there. You can't come in.
No, but I'm Tom's wife.
At my attempt to reason, Linda bursted into laughter.
There is no way a wife is a family member. You're an outsider, so you can't attend the funeral. Get it? Now please leave.
Linda pointed towards the door, urging me to exit. Swallowing what I wanted to say, I stared straight into her face.
So should I really leave?
My name is Kate, edging into my mid-30s at 35 years old. I work as a lawyer in a small legal office in a regional city. I married Tom, my colleague and age mate from the same office, 5 years ago. Being ambitious, Tom switched to a major law firm 3 years ago and has been busy ever since. He suggested I switch too, but I declined. I was content with my current office and job. My work, though, was a bit different from what the general public imagines for a lawyer. Primarily, I supported rehabilitation for those recently out of prison or on probation. I assisted with legal procedures and connect them with welfare and medical professionals when needed. Many imagine lawyers as flamboyantly active in courtrooms. That's exactly Tom's job, bustling between the court and office daily. Of course, I was not uninterested in such work. However, an incident led me to take an interest in rehabilitation support. Linda was displeased with this and looked down on my job as helping those who've strayed from society. I understood her to some extent. The world is always harsh on offenders. Of course, I don't believe offenders should be redeemed without atoning either. But Linda's disdain was extreme. It's not just my job she despised, but me personally. Every time we met at my in-laws' house, she never missed a chance for snide remarks.
When will Kate quit her job to have kids?
Linda's sarcastic voice reached me as I assisted Jack. For years, Jack's health had been failing, requiring in-home care, which Linda barely provided. So, I filled in, enduring Linda's barbs as I care for Jack.
But Kate's middle-aged now, maybe kids are out of the question. Why didn't Tom marry someone younger?
Ignoring Linda's complaints, I gently laid Jack on the bed. Trying not to catch Linda's attention, I sighed. Then, Jack's lips moved slightly, seemingly saying not to worry. I smiled awkwardly at Jack. No matter how busy I was or how much Linda taunted me, I didn't stop caring for Jack. Sadly, Jack's condition kept worsening. Just a week ago, he was able to enjoy fruits, but now he can't chew. Not just me, Linda too was shocked by Jack's rapid decline. To the point of avoiding his room. Doctors said he had a week left at most. Realizing his end, Jack insisted on no more hospitalizations, wanting to stay home. Jack apologized repeatedly for the trouble as I cared for him, but I've never felt burdened. Jack seemed to resent his dependence on others for survival. I tried to spend my days with Jack as cheerfully as possible, hiding the shock I harbored within. That changed with a single, desperate accusation from Linda.
You're just after Jack's inheritance, aren't you?
Linda hurled these words at me as I was about to enter Jack's room with his change of clothes. Confused, I stood frozen in the hallway.
All your caregiving won't earn you a cent.
Wait a minute.
I never said anything about wanting the inheritance.
As I protested, Linda's eyes widened even more.
You're trying to get on Jack's good side to influence his will, aren't you? I know it, even if you don't say it, Kate.
Linda glared at me angrily, but I couldn't understand. Until she mentioned it, I hadn't thought of the inheritance at all. I purely wanted to be there for Jack, making his remaining time comfortable, choosing to spend more time with him than at work. I had no ulterior motive to receive an inheritance through my caregiving. Tom, alerted by the commotion, came upstairs.
What's going on here? Why are you shouting?
Tom, Linda's saying.
Listen, Tom. This woman, she's after Jack's inheritance.
Linda's words drowned out mine. Hearing Linda's claim, Tom's expression darkened.
Kate, are you really after the inheritance?
Faced with Tom's suspicious gaze, I shook my head.
Of course not. You know, Tom. Linda hasn't been caring for Jack at all. That's not true. I'm not involved because you said to leave it to you.
I felt dizzy at Linda's absurd claims. She was trying to paint me as the villain, feeding all sorts of things to Tom. I prayed Tom wouldn't just take Linda's words at face value, but my hope was in vain. Tom looked at me with contempt.
So, what Mom said was true?
Tom muttered to himself, seemingly convinced. At that moment, Linda smirked at me. A look of victory visible only to me.
I can't trust someone who insults Mom to care for Dad.
Please leave this house. Tom's voice was cold as he made this declaration. Struggling to find my voice, I managed to speak.
Who will care for Jack then? It's obviously Mom.
Who else? Caught off guard by being suddenly addressed, Linda panicked. She probably hadn't expected to be tasked with caring for Jack herself. I handed her Jack's clothes, her smile strained.
I'm a bit busy today. But Kate can do it instead. Just no inheritance.
With that, Linda hurried downstairs. Tom, seeing me with the clothes, tersely told me not to do anything unnecessary and followed Linda down. I couldn't believe my actions were misconstrued this way. Feeling dejected, I entered Jack's room. Jack, thought to be asleep, was sitting up slowly in his electric bed, watching me intently. Did you hear that? I asked awkwardly, and Jack nodded slowly. He motioned for me to sit beside the bed. As I gently took a seat in a nearby chair, Jack began to speak in a whispery, frail voice. Kate, I know better than anyone that you're not the kind of person to do such things. Jack muttered in pain, his words coming out in fits and starts. I'm truly grateful for everything you've done. I can't thank you enough. Having said what he needed to, Jack slowly closed his eyes. And that was our last conversation. The funeral, per Jack's wishes, was to be held at my in-laws' house. It was planned as a small ceremony, with only family, relatives, and a few close acquaintances. On the day, it was raining from morning, and I was careful not to get my morning clothes wet as I walked to the in-laws' house. Tom, serving as the chief mourner, had left home earlier than me. He's probably meeting up with Linda by now, going over the day's proceedings. The misunderstanding that I was after Jack's inheritance hadn't been cleared. Since that incident, Tom blatantly looked down on me. Now fully on Linda's side, I watched him without thought. With Jack gone, everything seemed inconsequential to me. Upon reaching the in-laws' house, Linda was waiting at the entrance. As I tried to pass her with a brief greeting, she grabbed my arm. You're not allowed in here. What? Linda stood there, blocking my way. I thought maybe things weren't ready, but I was not just an attendee, I was a part of the family. I looked into Linda's face for an answer, but it wasn't there. There's no way you can enter. No, but I'm also Tom's wife. At my response, Linda burst out laughing. There is no way a wife is a family member. You're an outsider. You can't attend the funeral. Understand? Now please leave. Linda pointed at the front door, urging me to leave. I swallowed what I wanted to say and stared straight into her face. So should I really leave? Perhaps it was my unexpectedly strong gaze that made Linda falter for a moment. She looked at me suspiciously, thinking if I had some ulterior motives. But finding nothing, Linda turned her back to me. Just leave, please. I don't even want to see your face. Linda tried to dismiss me with a somewhat blustering tone. There was only one thing left for me to do. Leave quietly. It was regrettable that I couldn't say my final goodbye to Jack, but it was the only option. Please tell the relatives I'm sorry I couldn't attend. With that last bit of resistance, I left the in-laws' house. As I did, a man in a black funeral attire entered. He looked surprised to see me. I laughed off his questioning gaze, which seemed to ask why I was leaving before the funeral. I couldn't have lied under his scrutinizing gaze. Suddenly, the area around the in-laws' house felt like a different world. Several black luxury cars were parked nearby. Shouts from the entrance reached my ears, making me stop in my tracks. Amidst the men's angry shouts, I heard Linda's scream and Tom's anguished voice. The curious neighbors peeked out from their doors and windows, intrigued by the commotion. Sighing, I returned to the in-laws' house. I didn't want to help Linda, but letting the situation escalate would be problematic. As I appeared among the men, a glimpse of hope flickered in Linda's eyes, who was almost crying.
Kate! Help! These people say they're the mafia!
I felt like holding my head in despair at this expected turn of events. But I was the only one who could resolve the situation. I spotted a familiar face among the men and called out to him. You all seem as lively as ever. The man noticed my return and smiled.
Well, if Kate's in trouble, we can't just stand by.
Linda let out a short scream when she saw me.
You're with the mafia too!
Linda trembled at her own misunderstanding. That's absurd. But I quickly dismissed it. The men surrounding Linda and Tom stepped aside, allowing a path. Walking through was a man in a tailor-made black funeral suit, his gaze intense. It was Ben, the man I had passed when leaving the in-laws' house earlier.
Quite bold to turn away a benefactor of our organization, aren't you?
Linda, intimidated by Ben, collapsed to the ground.
We have nothing to do with the mafia.
Linda bravely retorted, but she recoiled, still sitting on the floor as the men closed in. Tom stood frozen in the corner, wanting nothing to do with the situation.
Does this woman know anything?
Ben asked me in surprise. I shook my head. I turned to Linda, still sitting on the floor, and addressed her. Do you remember what happened 7 years ago when Jack was arrested? Linda's face contorted, possibly recalling the incident. 7 years ago, Jack was arrested as a suspect in a case. I, still a novice lawyer then, was in charge of his defense. To put it simply, Jack was innocent. He had not committed the crime. But Jack stubbornly insisted he was guilty, as if protecting someone. The person Jack was protecting was a member of our organization, Ben added solemnly. Eventually, persuaded by senior members, a younger member came forward and Jack was released. But the price of the stand-in was heavy, and Jack's reintegration into society was difficult. That's when I developed an interest in rehabilitation support. While legally supporting Jack's reintegration, I also served as a liaison with the mafia trying to contact him. Arrests and releases were common in the mafia. Every time, I was called upon to spend days with them. Kate not only looked after Jack but also our younger members. Nobody usually wants to take care of people fresh out of prison. It seemed the mafia's reputation for loyalty wasn't just a fiction. They felt indebted to Jack for trying to take the fall for one of their young members and vowed to always help when in trouble. And somehow, that promise had extended to me. Kate's like our consulting lawyer. Ben turned to me with a smile that didn't quite match his sharp gaze. Still intimidated by Ben's changing expressions, I nodded awkwardly. Ben, who had smiled at me, now glared at Linda as if he had long forgotten the earlier moment.
Where did you put Jack's money?
A very cold voice echoed in the entrance hall. Linda finally started to tremble. Looking for an excuse, her gaze wandered meaninglessly. Tell the truth, Ben said casually, and Linda broke down. Tears flowed as she shook her head in anger.
I spent it all. It's all dirty money anyway. Whatever my husband earns is mine to spend. What's wrong with using it?
Tom somehow managed to keep the agitated Linda from storming out of the house. Ben, who was accustomed to overwhelmingly tense situations, watched this without changing his expression.
Jack's money wasn't dirty. It was hard-earned cash from a burger joint, saved by our young guys. Did you spend everything Jack was saving to leave for Kate?
Ben's outcry echoed around.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Let me apologize on her behalf, please, no violence.
Tom was the first to reach his limit. He apologized deeply without a hint of shame. I was astounded watching Tom, who had been silent till now, turn apologetic when he sensed personal danger. He even said sorry to me for doubting me, but I was not in the mood to listen.
Can you pay back everything Jack saved for Kate?
Ben deliberately intimidated Tom and Linda with his glare. They nodded like puppets, their faces pale. Linda had embezzled over $100,000 of Jack's savings. It was shocking to learn that not only Linda but also Tom had been spending Jack's savings on drinks for colleagues and lottery tickets. Tom, suspected of private dealings with the mafia, was forced to resign from the law firm. I planned to divorce Tom once everything was settled. With Jack gone, I saw no need to force myself to maintain ties with Tom or Linda. Linda, under pressure from the mafia, sold her house and moved into an old, cheap apartment, working from morning till night. All to repay every penny of Jack's savings she had used. I never intended to take the money, but Ben insisted that Linda should fully understand the consequences of using someone else's money, so I agreed to go along with it. I continued to devote myself to my work, but recently a colleague invited me to start a new office together. They had always watched my work and thought I deserved a more liberating environment. I accepted the invitation and now spend busy yet fulfilling days establishing the new office.